Hi, everyone. We cannot hear the city of Shelton. You're all on mute, just so you know.
Well, we thought we'd be quiet tonight.
You are quiet. Not
You can hear
We're
us.
just waiting on a couple others to come in, so we want to have our back and forth on here.
Who else? Elaine? Just Elaine?
Frank Donato is having trouble logging in, so he's just retrying.
Every time I log in, it's a different procedure.
Alright.
Hey, folks, we don't have a quorum yet, so until somebody, I just texted everybody, as you probably saw, until we get a quorum, we can't keep a hearing open, we can't close a hearing, we can't take any action because we don't have a quorum. So we're just holding on for a few more minutes to hopefully somebody will join us.
Anybody talk with Jenny?
Well, she was included on the text I just sent that if you're supposed to be joining, please do so, as we don't have a quorum, so.
Yeah, Jenny won't be attending today. It's my understanding.
Right. She may be a little groggy. She had a procedure, so she just went home.
I texted Commissioner Matto, but no response. And I know that Commissioner Donato is trying to log in, but he was actually having difficulty. So I just resent him the link.
Okay, good. All right, once he joins us, we'll have a quorum.
Right.
He must be the one in the hotel room. Is he traveling?
Yes, he was traveling. Mhm.
Okay, that's what he said. I can go from my hotel room. Yeah, fine.
P and Z will travel.
Maybe Commissioner Mato has a problem logging in too.
Or maybe she had to work, because otherwise she would have texted us to tell us she was. Who knows if she was coming home on Route 8. And Ginny's on her way home.
Commissioner Matto is probably out, right out there.
I just got a text from Jenny that she's on her way home from the hospital.
Frank is on.
We have Commissioner Donato here.
All right.
Where she would be.
Are you recording?
Where?
Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Kelly, Vice Chair of the Shelton PCC. Today is Thursday, February 16th, 2023, a special meeting of the Planning and Zoning of Shelton Planning and Zoning being conducted at City Hall, Room 104. Via Zoom and through a phone link is hereby called to order. This meeting may also be viewed live and remotely on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I phoned in, but I'm muted, so I've been unable to call.
Okay, starting with
Couldn't get in on Zoom, so I said, I'll just pop over here.
the roll call, the PCC, please verbally indicate if you are present when your name is called. Commissioner Parkins,
Present.
Commissioner Motto,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Donato. Okay,
Can you unmute?
Alex Rosati, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Present.
Alexander Castro, P and Z Assistant Administrator.
Present.
Anthony Panico, Consultant.
Present.
Sarah Venuzio, Recording Secretary.
Present.
And Stephanie Charbonnet, stenographer.
Present.
Vice Chair, Commissioner Ticky is here. I didn't hear my name, and also the, just so you all know, your screen is flashing, so we can't really see you, City of Shelton screen.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
Right,
it
nice
may
technology.
potentially stay like that unless I turn it
all
on.
right.
Terrible.
Commissioner Ticky is here and myself, Commissioner Kelly.
And Commissioner Frank Donato, I don't know if you heard me or not.
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, Commissioners Arger and Lasco and alternate Commissioner Anafio are not available for this evening's meeting. Alternate Commissioner Donato will be seated for Commissioner Lasco. Thank you. A couple of points before continuing with today's agenda. Mr. Rossetti and Ms. Castro will act as Zoom meeting hosts. Commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, and the chair asks that you please identify yourself, wait to be recognized, and make sure that you are not speaking over each other, and also make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. This evening, we have the continuation of two public hearings, and this is the protocol for each. Mr. Rossetti, Ms. Castro will indicate if there are any written comments will receive from members of the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this meeting to be read into the records. The applicant or its associates will make their presentation. The PZC will also ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant or associates can answer PCC questions at the time they are presented or the conclusion of the presentation. The public will then be recognized to comment of any new material presented by the applicant. The applicant's attorney and our associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the PCC feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair may ask a motion to continue the public hearing. The public hearing remains open. The PCC is not allowed to make any public comments, discuss any part of the applicant or his associate presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the PCC feels that the applicant and or associates have answered all the questions and have addressed all concerns of the PCC and our public, the chair will ask for a motion to close public hearing. Staff will then schedule a discussion about the application at upcoming PCC meetings, during which the PCC will be asked by the chair of how it wants to proceed. These are the guidelines for the members of the public who choose to speak at the point of public hearing when the chair calls for public comment. To identify yourself as a member of the public who wish to speak, please use Zoom, raise your hand, or feature star name on your phone. After you are identified by Mr. Rossetti, Ms. Castro, please state and spell your name for your address to assist the recording secretary stenographer when the minutes and transcripts of the public hearing are being prepared. Please direct your comments to the questions to the PCC chair and to the chair only, not to the applicant or his associates. Comments from the public should be address new material presented by the applicant. Since the opening of the public hearing, the address specific criteria of the zoning regulations, the merit of the application, and the new information, not and do not repeat comments previously presented. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbal participation. First hearing is Dominic Thomas for 62 Center LLC at 62 Center Street. The public hearing for this application opened up on January 25th, 2023. Besides the items already posted by the city website, which were acknowledged on January 25th, 2023, a new artist rendering for the garage and the site plan of level 7 showing the building section and railing detail were submitted and posted. Mr. Rossetti, Mr. Castro, Ms. Castro, are there any reports, material, or correspondence received within the time period of this application that need to be acknowledged for the record?
Nothing that wasn't posted on there.
All right, if the applicant is present, please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, for the applicant. This is continuation of the public hearing, and there were a few issues that we needed to address. The first one of which was a request for the client's business plan concerning the parking garage. After discussing it with the client, he is in conversation with a few companies that manage parking garages. It is their intention, and it's his intention at this point, that there would be very limited dedicated parking, probably on the first floor for employees of the retail and the restaurant. The rest of the garage at this point would have no reserved parking. So even those people who are going, for instance, to the rooftop restaurant would enter and go to the restaurant, park somewhere, wherever they wanted in the garage, and go to the restaurant, or if they wanted to park there and go to other places in Shelton. That wouldn't prevent the restaurant or the retail from engaging in a practice of validation of tickets, but that would be the decision of those businesses. So it is not the intention at this point in the business plan to reserve anything other than a small number for the employees of the businesses and potentially the employee of the parking garage or employees of the parking garage. That was number one. Number two, let me just expand this a bit. In the full screen. Ms. Castro, am I able to share screen?
You should be able to.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Let me try again. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Right now.
And by the way, can you see whether Joe Mingalello is present in the waiting
No,
area?
Yes,
Oh.
would you like me to add him in?
I hope his audio is better than it was last week.
Very low.
Whoops. I have a couple of presentations. This is, by the way, a color rendering that was inadvertently left off of the presentation from the last meeting. The request was made for both a sort of a section, and the request was made for this is a color elevation for a color rendering. We do have a rendering, and if Mr. Mingalello is present. Joe, are you there? Oh, if not, I will put on my architectural hat and basically tell you this is the rendering. Looking at this, if you were standing across the street at the what used to be the pharmacy and looking across and looking up Quorum as the elevation goes up and looking down Center. The entrance, if you can see at all my cursor, the entrance off of Center is here. And the entrance off of quorum at this point up here. You have the retail on the bottom, and you have the restaurant on the top with the levels of parking garage in between. There was, like I said, we did not present the color elevation to show you the color elevation, colored in. This is from Center Street. Looking at it, this is the building that is owned, I can't think of the name of it. Printing, correct. And this is the entrance, the driveway off of there. This is the colored elevation along Quorum, and as you can see around the glass is where the entrance is for the garage on Quorum. And the A5 level floor, this has a couple of things on it. And Joe is here.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I'll pick it up.
I will remove my architectural hat. You're on.
Well, you did a good job. You should leave it on. No, I'll take care of it. One of the commissioners, one of the issues was the dining on the roof.
Can you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Oh, sorry. It's Joe Mingalello and Associate Architects. Office is located Huntington Street in Shelton. Okay. Yeah, so it was basically a railing question, railing detail. And we show lower left-hand corner here, people dining, and then there's a parapet, which acts as a guardrail, and it's 42 inches, which is code requirement for that. So that was one of the issues. How high is the guardrail? And what is the relationship of the dining to that? So we did a little section through the restaurant, and the section's really taken through the beer garden part of it. Okay. And the other issue that was brought up was the rendering. If Dominic, you can bring the rendering back.
The rendering okay, yes. Sir.
Yeah, just the that's fine. We broke up the elevations of this. As you can see, the retail is done in brick. Okay, and it's all glass underneath with a railing system. And then the other end of the building, as you go up Quorum Avenue, which is the restaurant entrance and parking at that end of the building, is also done in brick. Okay, so, and then in between it is done in a metal siding we're planning. We have a product that we really like that we think will look absolutely terrific with brick. It's metal that looks like wood. So those are the two materials that we're really considering, and we have samples of both. We can always present to the commission prior to any construction. And so that's really how we broke up the facade a little bit. Okay. Other than that, I think we covered pretty much everything in our original hearing or initial hearing. I don't know if anyone on the commission has any questions about the architecture or where we're at with it in terms of planning.
Yeah, I do. Commissioner Kelly, Joe, what is the height where you're planning on putting the metal product to the railings?
What is the height of it?
Yeah, from the floor to the top of the railings. Is that 40 inches?
Oh, yeah. Actually, from the floor, actually, you can see the space. It's only basically a spandrel panel, we would call it. And the total from the top of the railing, we may eliminate the railing and just do a metal panel. So really, from top of railing right now to the bottom of that is 5 feet.
Is 5 feet to the floor?
Yes, that's correct. To the top of the railing is 5 feet. Those horizontal bands that you see, that dimension that Dominic is referencing, that's 5 feet. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why not make a railing like that up on top also where the beer garden is? I mean, 40 inches is, you know,
I would like, because I personally think is that if you look at that railing and that beer, I mean, basically we have the molding along the top of, which is really the roof line, and to introduce the metal, there will have some metal below it. Yes. Just below the fascia. but it will pick up a little, but probably not more than 2 feet of the metal up at top. And then we would have breaking. As you can see in the rendering, you have the fascia up above, which is all part of the roof line. And I don't think I would want to introduce metal there. And then there's metal below it, though, as you can see on the upper level.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that.
I just, so, just so I can be clear, Commissioner Kelly, in this rendering, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 4 feet, correct?
That it's
The-
42 inches, yes.
No, that's
3'6".
42 inches, I'm sorry. This is the
Yes.
42 inches, but
Correct.
the plan is in front of the 42 inches is to have the plantings all around, correct?
Yeah, that'll be some form of landscaping up on the roof. Yes. And what you see in plan there, and I did an elevation previously, colored up elevation of corn. But yes, we're gonna have plantings up on that roof, some partial green roofs and stuff. As you can see it here in the rendering, you can see the greenery.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about someone maybe having too many beers and going over there.
No,
But
that they would have to, they'd have to.
higher- At least with something higher, it would be harder for them to do something.
Yeah, it's
I mean, we could
partially
put,
safety and it's partially control of anybody throwing stuff off the roof.
Right.
well, how high are we talking in terms of height? I mean, anybody can throw beer, or at least hopefully they drink it first and then throw the can off their roof, which wouldn't weigh anything. But in terms of beer, this is a beer garden and they're draft beers. They get served in a glass. You get to a typical restaurant, they have 30, 40 different types of draft beers. So I don't see people throwing beer cans or glasses off the roof, no matter where we are. Okay. And the other thing, if it did fall off if it did fall off the edge of that, I mean, that top is about 2 feet wide. Okay, so, I mean, if we wanted to put a little clear glass, let's call it backsplash or something a foot high, that if something did roll off the roof and it fell onto a plant or below, I was thinking about that when you brought it up, Tony, that what I could do there so that nobody is walking underneath that overhang at that point. We have plenty of room. We got a sidewalk that's 7 feet. That area of that wall is set back another 2, almost 3 feet from the property line. We could do we can do a planter there, which may look nice too.
I think necessarily it's the point where someone could walk the ledge.
Well, that could happen any building.
I mean, yeah.
Right, I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
but
control that.
But you could make it harder for them
You know, they
to
can
walk
jump
the
off
ledge
the
with
shelf
something on.
if they want,
Yeah,
right?
and yeah, exactly. You can walk, I mean, if you're up there, drunk and.
It's that desperate at a bar, but there's just, you can't possibly think of everything. Typically though,
Yeah.
outdoor establishments usually don't serve glass.
That's true.
They usually
Plastic.
use plastic, so. I
Okay,
think-
well, that's the case, sure. We could do that in the beer garden. We can control probably how we want to serve the liquor kind of thing, the beer. Yeah.
Tony Panico's concerns, that there's crash blowing over the side, so that's.
Yeah,
again, for something higher.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Could you incorporate some sort of a planter box on top of the ledge?
Oh, sure we could. We got plenty of room there, absolutely.
That's a
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
Instead of relying on pots on the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
that's-
Yep,
that's like-
yep. Yep,
Or
we
a
could do that.
combination of both.
Yep.
But the plots on the floor, I mean, when you're talking about a planter box on the ledge, I think the plots on the floor, the pots on the floor or the planter boxes on the floor with landscaping of an appropriate height is really a lot better than having something on the ledge.
Well, this isn't
Especially
final,
if it's,
is this final detail approval or just?
No, this is
Yeah,
schematic
this is for-
design.
So, yeah, that's.
yes, this is final detail.
Oh, it is?
Final, yeah, initial concept and final detail, sign approval. But certainly there can be discussion even in this, in the protection, but in looking at the A5, And if, certainly a requirement that whatever types of landscaping or something raises above the level, if that's a concern, I mean, as one of the commissioners said, I couldn't really tell who, you can try to address every situation. You can't control stupid. And,
Well, that's
you
true,
you
but
do
you
the best you can,
Yes,
but there are
but-
other rooftop restaurants all around.
Maybe more disturbed than stupid, but.
Yeah, you can't control it, but you can do things to discourage.
This
Okay.
commission,
That's why,
if I could just add a word, by the way, City of Shelton, we can't see you, so it just makes it a little hard to see who's about to speak. Your camera's off, but I'm concerned about the even with the landscaping, if it's not year-round landscaping, I think I would just be more comfortable if that 42 inches could be increased. I know that's what the reg calls for, but if it could be more, because if the landscaping is not year-round and people are out there in the fall, or we're having a unseasonably warm, February, people could be out there year-round. So I think if it could be more than 42 inches. I also wanted to ask about the metal that looks like wood. It looks a little stark in the rendering, but you
Yep.
said that it looks like wood. So I would be interested in seeing a sample when you can make it available in the planning and zoning office to see, does that wood have a vein through it, or does it soften it up? Because right here it looks a little stark, but if it really does look like wood, I'd be interested in seeing what that actually looks like.
Yeah, excuse me, Joe Mingalello. Yes, it does really look like wood. You'd have a hard time telling the difference. It's fantastic. It's got texture, color, and it's really nice. Yes, I will have a piece at the office. I'll drop it off.
Joe, is there any way we can reconsider the appearance of the parking above the retail there? That's kind of the building on the street, and if there's some way that it didn't have to look like a parking garage. Can those openings be closed down and take on the impression of windows?
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely.
How would you
Yep.
do that?
Okay.
Joe, this is Commissioner Kelly. How would you do that?
Put windows in it?
If you put windows in it, don't you have to exhaust the fumes and do more
Oh, no,
HVAC?
it's open all the
You
way
can't-
over. the sun.
I think you could just do it with a framing system, okay? So that it looks like glass, it has some mullions into it. You could do
Right.
that and change that appearance a little bit. So at least that part of it, the retail part of it, does look more like a retail store. Yeah, that's
So it
a
looks
good
like
idea.
Really
The
nice.
whole building looks like a commercial building and
Yeah.
not retail with parking up above it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll try that. We'll
Uh,
look at that. Mhm.
you're talking about at this level, correct?
Sorry?
Are
No,
you
you're
talking about at
talking
all
about-
levels or at this level, just at the second
I'm
floor?
talking about
level?
that whole corner segment
Right.
from roof
Okay.
to sidewalk.
Where the brick is.
The stone,
I think that should take on the appearance of a building, not a parking garage.
I agree.
Yeah. that's right.
I agree. Where the brick is, if that could have windows.
Yeah.
well, you
sometimes
can't
make it
have
look like-
windows.
At the very
Yeah.
least, that component where you have the brickwork
Okay.
on all three sides.
Yeah,
You
it's only
can't
two
have
sides that
yeah.
faces that is exposed. That's all.
Right.
Those two sides.
But-
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if you can have windows, enclose it, is what I'm.
No,
trying
we're
to say.
not
No, I'm not-
suggesting
yeah.
that, Dominic. We're suggesting
Oh.
something that when you look at it, it has the impression of a window.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, all right, I got you.
That's the impression of window.
There are many places that have parking garages in their downtown that come out to the street, but it doesn't look like a parking garage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just looks.
The only way
I mean,
to
it's a
do
parking
that is
garage,
close
but
it
it
in.
still just looks.
Right.
It.
Yeah.
We would have to see something on that.
Okay. All right.
And how about that glass front? I get it that it just doesn't seem to. I don't know, it just doesn't seem
Well,
to
isn't that the stairwell?
blend, yeah, and I like the idea that it's a stairwell that's lit from the outside, so that it's daylight or, light from the
Stairwell
street
elevator.
for safety reasons,
Right,
right? For
right.
people utilizing, it's nice to be able to look outside or, if something's going on, people can see inside. It just seems like to be a massive glass. added to a parking garage.
No.
Is it needed on the whole, that whole piece?
Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, basically, we looked at it from a design perspective to break up the elevation and make it not look like a garage like the others, okay, the rest of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it is the lobby space, run up, the lobby, stairwell for the garage, okay, and the restaurant. So that's how you get in the garage. You go through that, into that space. Okay? Or that's how you exit it. I mean, if we want to
And
look
that's
at
attractive, but
breaking
it's
it up
very
a little
unlike
bit.
anything downtown.
Exactly. It looks like it belongs up on Commerce Drive.
Could you eliminate, shrink it a little bit on each
Well, I
side?
we could maybe just eliminate some of the glass and just
Yeah.
maybe bring some more masonry across just to break it up so it's not a curtain wall situation. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
yeah. All right. When we'll look at that, give you an option for that, and the same thing for the retail, so it looks a little less like a garage. Okay, I mean, it doesn't most garages are really made out of concrete and they look like garages, but this has, at least we broke up the elevations, different materials. Okay. All right, we'll look at both of those. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Do we know how
Joe.
the hours that this garage will be open? Is it a 24/7?
I don't believe there's any determination on the hours. Certainly it would be open, it would remain open to the same time frame as the restaurant, which would mean it would be open later. It could very well be nowadays with the garages that are totally electronic, which are, most of them are, they can be open 24 hours, but I'm not sure that that's what this is going to be. You know, you have garages that close, you know, if they're servicing restaurants and everything, and the restaurants can be open in downtown, I think till 2:00.
Yeah,
On weekends, at least a lot of them are. So, you know, it'll have to be, the hours will have to be adjusted to the business use.
All right, so that'll be in the business plan?
would you
That would
have
be,
a-
yes, like I said, he's talking to several other people,
Oh.
several other people. A lot of them, at this point, a lot of the garages that you deal with, especially in these urban areas, are now becoming totally electronic. In other words, you go in there, you can either pay and do it with your phone, or if you do get a ticket, you have a kiosk that you have to pay in order to be able to exit.
Yeah,
I assume there'll be some sort of gate system there, right? So that,
Right, well,
You go-
even if you use the kiosk, for example, similar to the one in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. You go in, when you're walking back after shopping, you're going to the restaurant, you go up to the kiosk, you pay, you put your ticket in, your ticket comes back out. You drive up to the gate, you put your ticket in, and the gate goes up.
right.
If you haven't paid and you put your ticket in, the gate won't go up.
Okay.
okay, like to see the hours of operation in that business plan, please.
Yeah, if it's
Okay,
open.
well, I don't know at this point, before you, he hasn't, he's working with entities to run it. I don't know, you know, I mean,
Well, if it's,
If they're not a novice to parking garages, they should have some sort of a sample business plan for operating a parking garage. So I don't think we're
Well-
asking for anything unreasonable to ask for a business plan for this garage.
yeah, well, as I explained to you, I gave it to you, as far as the hours of operation, it could be 24 hours. It could be that they close at 2:30 and open at 5. It depends on the business and the demand. It's, the business plan is going to be
So it's gonna
subject
change
to the,
daily based on demand?
and let me shut down
Just
from,
ask them what their plan is, please.
well, if you have, Dominic, for reasons that if you have a no reserved parking, so if someone is either visiting or has a rent downtown, they could use it and they could come and go as they please, so it would have to be 24/7.
Yeah, if that's what the individual wanted to cater to in a lot of these plants. Some of them don't, some of them are geared to the businesses. If you're talking about the people in the residences using it to leave their cars there, I couldn't guarantee you that would be what any business people would want. The
Well, so that's
business
what we're
plan
trying to
usually
figure out. If this garage is meant also for public use and it's gonna close at 2 o'clock, the people that are utilizing it need to know that it's gonna close at 2 o'clock.
Exactly.
So if they go visit a friend
Yeah.
or they
Oh,
go to the
they-
24/7 grocery store and they get there at 3 o'clock and they can't get out, there needs to be some sort of signage to let people know it closes at 3.
Oh, without a doubt, there would be rules and regulations, without a doubt.
That's all we're asking.
There would be on your ticket and it would be on there. You're asking me to commit to a business plan for my client who's gonna be working with those people, entities that are managing it. I can't tell you whether or not it's going to be a 24/7 or whether or not it's going to have a termination. If it has a termination hour, that would be well posted and would be part of the ticket. I'm
Well,
not sure.
Do
I
you
would
have a
tend to-
problem, do you have a problem of running that plan by the commission? The operational plan for the garage, hours and
Sure, but-
notifications,
but-
et cetera.
Right, but
It's something we
I-
ask all business owners, what are your own hours of operation? It's a standard question we ask. It's not
Right,
like we're pulling this out.
and I understand what you're saying. The parking garage would tend to be a 24-hour operation. So at this point, I suppose for the sake of the commission here, then anything less would be certainly acceptable. So yes, more than likely it would be 24/7.
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner Ticky, I just want to say one more point on the architecturals. I'm not sure if it's possible to put them back up, but
Sure, hold on.
thank you.
The
just-
rendering or the
Thank you. No,
colored
this-
elevation?
This is great. Thank you, Attorney.
Okay.
We were talking about, I think Commissioner Parkin said, on the left-hand side, if there were to be less glass there, and then you were to introduce the perception of glass on the left side above the retail, there might be a way to kind of match them up so that they complement each other a little bit more. So you might have kind of the same like ratio of brick to the perceived glass. And there's a 360 State Street in New Haven is an apartment building. I think they have a rooftop something or other as well, but they have a parking garage and they have some sort of element of glass, or at least it looks like that from the road. So I just wanted to mention 360 State in New Haven, but I think we're onto something with some changes on the left side above the retail and adding in something that looks like glass and then less glass on the right that might be able to just complement each other more in terms of the aesthetics of the building.
Yeah, you're actually,
Good
Commissioner
suggestion.
Ticky, you're talking about the size of the panes and whatnot,
Yeah,
correct?
just to compliment each other.
Just to compliment it, to look more uniform.
Yes.
Okay. Any other commissioner have any questions?
This is Commissioner Frank Donato.
Yes.
This is the first time I'm seeing this, so on the plan of the inside, there is an elevator, right? Next to the
Yes.
staircase. Did I see that? Did I see that again?
What do you want to say?
Put on a typical floor.
Yeah, the elevator.
Okay,
The elevator's in this location and there's another elevator on the other side. I can go back and try to pick up the other floor plan if you want me, the original one at the original meeting.
Probably 80, A3 or 4.
Okay, hold on, let me. I'm sorry, Joe, you said what, A3 or 4?
I think that's where you'll find it.
Well,
This is A3.
yeah,
Is this the correct one, Joe?
Yeah, that's
It
correct.
just showed the
Or you
elevators.
can go up one, if or you can go up. They're all the same pretty much. but-
Okay,
Yeah, there's an
two-
elevator and a stair in those lobby. That's the lobby for, again, the restaurant and the parking garage, and there's a stair and an elevator, all floors.
okay, good.
And
I
there's a
didn't see
second
that.
elevator over here,
Okay,
which is a service elevator.
So it's not open to the public, correct?
Correct.
Correct. There's a service elevator in the back where we service the restaurant. And that's strictly just for that elevator as a service. for
Yeah,
the
it would be
restaurant.
for the loading and unloading area.
That's correct. Yep.
Is that something they would lock? Like,
Well, it's not open to the public. Yeah, absolutely. It would be just for the restaurant.
yeah, but if somebody parks on that lower level and wants to take that elevator up to the restaurant, could they?
They-
The public?
No, they can't. No, they
They
can't.
just walk over to the other elevator.
Right.
That's
okay.
correct.
Okay.
Joe, I noticed that you made some changes on some of these sheets. Have you posted or provided us with the changes?
What,
Changes,
For example, the one that showed the detail of the roof parapet wall, et cetera.
Th-
yeah,
those
no,
are
we
posted.
haven't, yeah, we,
That
This
hasn't
one,
been
just
no,
did
this
posted.
one here
one.
was,
These
are you
sketches, so-
talking about this one
and
here,
the
Tony?
schematic
A5?
section and the railing detail, those were not on the plans that were provided.
no,
They
that's
were-
correct.
You're correct. That was
Okay.
requested and was provided this week and was uploaded.
Okay, well, it's not uploaded yet, has it?
Yes,
Yep,
Oh, then
Yeah.
I must have missed it. I checked it out. I checked your stuff out today and I didn't see anything new. Okay,
well, again, I know the new upload system is different. As a matter of fact, I talked to Alexandra today when I delivered the 11 by 17s and confirmed that it was uploaded on Tuesday.
okay, what was uploaded besides A5?
Besides A5, the
The rendering.
the renderings were uploaded. A5 was uploaded. The color elevation
Okay,
is the elevation from the package, just colored up.
okay,
I could,
those are the only three?
right, those are the only
That's
three. But
correct.
Again, this one I did not upload because this is simply the elevation in the black and white set. This is that elevation is simply this colored up.
Okay. All right, I'll go check that out tomorrow.
okay, do any of the PCC commissions have any questions for Attorney Thomas other than what the questions that were asked already? Mr. Panico, do you have any comments? At this point?
Are we on mute? No.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Panico?
No, other than the ones I mentioned about the architectural appearance and trying to maintain the appearance of a building on the street side and play down the fact that this thing is a big garage. Make it more consistent with what's going on downtown.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to the public portion then. And in the auditorium, is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay. Mr. Perillo? Yeah, you can speak.
Hi, Jason Perillo. I live at 454 Quorum Avenue in Shelton. I just want to thank the commission, particularly for your thoughts regarding the aesthetic of this. It's one of only 4 intersections in downtown that has a traffic light. And once it's built, it's built.
Right.
And I think, Mr. Panico made a very good point about the corner structure and making that look like a building. The days of building a parking lot that looks like a parking lot, or a parking garage looks like a parking garage, those are over. Nobody's doing that. And Commissioner Tickey's reference to State Street in New Haven is a great example of how you can do a really nice job. And I'm not asking for gold leaf, I'm not asking for diamonds. But to the commissioner's point as well, the one feature in particular that's added that just doesn't it might be beautiful in another town, but that big glass feature just doesn't really work
Yeah,
in downtown Shelton. I actually, I sent an email to Mr. Rossetti. I don't know if he shared it with the other commissioners, but I also included some examples of parking structures that were done in a way that really fit in with the rest of the town. Those are included.
This should be online.
Alex, if you haven't forwarded
I
that to the
have.
commissioners,
Yes,
by all means,
They
there's
should
one
be
in
online too,
particular.
so that
they are.
the applicant can see.
Yeah,
it.
there's one in particular, that really works. And again, I mean, you can make a parking garage look like Pierpont Block if you want, and it doesn't have to be expensive to do it. So I just want to thank you for considering that, and, you know, I would just urge holding this open until, you know, especially since the applicant wants this to be a final design
Yeah, that's what I'm.
detailed
thinking.
approval. I just don't know if the commission's there
Okay,
yet, but thank you, I appreciate it.
thank you. Next, we're hearing from the members of the public participating remotely. Those who are participating remotely, would you please raise your hand, use the Zoom, raise your hand. Anyone on?
I do not.
Or dial *9 on your phone, be identified. No one? All right, last call, either raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone. Okay, Attorney Thomas, would you like to respond to any of the public comments at this point?
He's muted.
Okay,
He's speaking, but he's muted.
You're muted, Attorney Thomas.
Yeah, I do think that the architectural, I do think that the suggested changes can be addressed. I don't, you know, I have a client who at this point is trying to address a need downtown. And I think that what is proposed, what's subject to the changes is appropriate. If the commission wishes to completely change thoroughly the architecture, it takes it in a different vein. The architecture was done by Joe Mingalello with the purpose of achieving something that is designed better than obviously most of the parking garages that you see. The changes that have been suggested are able to be accomplished. But if we are going to now embark upon and keep the hearing open so we can look at everybody else's suggest pictures from other parking garages without knowing all the ramifications, it's I think it's going too far. I think that the issues, the changes that were recommended can be easily addressed by staff and the approvals for the final site development plans, which still need to be signed off after change to address these concerns. So I need to say we are talking about a parking garage, and the changes that are suggested are appropriate. I believe they can be handled by staff, and they would still be subject to an appropriate sign off once they're complied with. That the suggestions of the glass and balancing it and making the end look a little bit better are appropriate for the presentation that we made and for the changes that we made. But that would be my only response to that.
well, Commissioner Kelly, Attorney Thomas, I really don't feel holding it open for 2 or 3 weeks isn't going to belabor any time frame. Seeing, you know, the project was in planning for 2 to 3 years.
I understand that, but I do want to understand correctly. We are talking about having Joe Mingalello make the changes that were suggested by the commissioners at this meeting. Right? We are not talking about I know there was a reference to looking at other buildings and design them like these other buildings, which would mean changing it entirely.
No, you're not changing the entire thing. You're just changing 1 or 2 tweaks.
Right. Okay,
But
that
It's final site plan approval. That's what's concerning to me. And we also have 2 commissioners who are not here this evening, that were at the original hearing. I sat through that very long hearing, night watching it on YouTube. I do not believe, Mr. Commissioner Donato was even on the commission at that point, so.
Mhm.
You know, while we have a quorum to be able to make a motion to keep it open or
Yeah.
closed, I don't really think that,
Well, I have, obviously, if to keep it open, especially with those commissions that are not, and have it up in sometime in one of the, March meetings is fine. I just wanted clarification that what we are talking about is having Joe Mingolello make the changes that were discussed tonight.
I
By
think
the
Joe's
commission.
got a good idea of what we're looking for.
I do
We're
too.
looking for something that more blends in with downtown. And I think the two suggestions between Commissioner Ticky and some comments I made and other commissioners, I think Joe's probably got a good handle on that, but I think it
If
should
we-
be presented to all the commissioners, not
We
just.
can only react to that once we've seen it.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Ticky. I mean, I'm the one I think that you're commenting, you're referencing. I would just like to see what was proposed to us tweaked. I gave other examples. Sounds like others gave some examples, but that was just to explain that there are other parking garages that don't look like a parking garage. I mean, look, it has been told to us time and time again from the public that we need more public in our downtown. And I think that this really will serve a purpose and really will help to alleviate the parking problems that we have in downtown. And so it's great to see the project. I think we all just want to make sure we get it right. And since it's final plans, we all as a commission get to take a look at that final plan and what that structure will be. It's a very visible building. And because it serves a need, it's going to get great use in our downtown.
Absolutely. That clarifies it, and I think Joe can run with that. I just wanted to make sure that's what we were talking about, is making the changes per your suggestions.
That's correct.
Also, has staff received anything from the police department?
Everything we've received is online. Everything we've received so far is online.
So we have not received anything official from engineering or police or any other departments
See that?
other than the fire marshal.
Correct.
I believe Mr. Swift spoke at the last meeting that he reviewed remember, this thing, I think, went to final site development plans in the prior proposal. And he addressed the engineering plans with the city engineer from the prior proposal. Because the footprint isn't changing or anything.
No, my concern is to make sure that everybody is happy with the curb cuts or where they're located, and the fact that it's a public garage now. It's going to have a little bit more activity than what would have happened before. I just want to make sure everybody's on board with it.
Yeah. I do believe the curb cuts were the same as in the prior, but you're correct about the amount of traffic, especially with the parking demand in downtown.
Exactly. That garage is going to have heavy use for sure.
Yeah.
We wish it were 50% bigger.
All right, as long as we're
So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing.
fine. I will go through
I'll second it.
all right, Commissioner Parkins, you
Make motion.
motion, and Commissioner Amato will second it. Those in favor, Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Ticky.
Aye.
Commissioner Donato
Aye.
and Commissioner Kelly, aye, so it's 5-0. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And
So,
can Joe get some stuff to us as soon as he gets some slots put down on paper?
Joe, are you there?
He signed off.
I would assume he would, then, Mr. Attorney Don.
Yeah, Yeah, as soon as we get it, we will upload it. And I will include you in, after the upload, I will make sure, Tony, you get PDFs of it, and if necessary, I can have Joe FedEx down full-size sets or whatever.
Okay, it's good if we can start having a look at it before, without waiting till the hearing night, you know?
And also a
Correct.
sample of the metal. Which Joe said he would bring over.
Does the commission have
Yeah.
any input for the applicant relative to color schemes and exterior materials or anything like that? So that we don't come up with any surprises when we.
With the public hearing open, we have a very interesting issue. We could have Mr. Bigalello deliver to the staff a piece of the metal that Commissioner Ticky required, okay?
Samples of the
I
materials, sure.
believe with that, to keep within the public hearing framework, Commissioner Ticky can view it down at the planning and zoning office, and then at the continuation of the public hearing report what he viewed.
Sure.
Obviously, it wouldn't be a meeting if he's there by himself, but that would be keeping within the framework of the public hearing. You know what I mean? That say, yes, I viewed it, and this is, you know what I mean? And then we can also have a photograph of it that we will present at the, we can screen share at the hearing.
Why can't a sample just be brought to the next meeting when it's continued?
Well, it could be
Because Commissioner Ticky wouldn't be able to touch it.
Right.
Well,
See.
if he comes there, he would. If
And
he
the
comes
same,
there,
the same way with the brick that you selected. It surprised me that was brick.
Well, let's say it could be available in both places.
Yeah, I would say make it available for the next meeting.
And at City Hall, fine.
All I gotta do is bring it downstairs.
No, it's going to be available in person for the people in person at the next meeting. But I just wanted Commissioner Ticky to have the ability to go down and see it ahead of time because he's on a Zoom.
And then, I might be at the the next meeting in person if the applicant wants to make the materials available prior to, and one of us happens to be in the office, we could view it
Right.
before or the next meeting,
Right.
but it just, sometimes we've found that materials used look different than what we see, and since they said it looks just like wood, it would be interesting to just see the materials in person.
Sure.
And if we can get some preliminary feedback in the event that we don't agree with some of the representations, that would be beneficial too. Otherwise, next hearing, we have some more surprises.
We will try to get you everything as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Where am I? The second public hearing is application 2225 Cedar Village at the Locks, 281 Canal Street. The public hearing for this application was open November 30th, 2022. At its continuation on January 18th, 2023, the PZC reviewed update site plans and Riverview rendering of the building requested by Commissioner Harger. The PZC continues to continue the public hearing. Mr. Rossetti and Ms. Castro, were there any more reports, material, correspondence received within the time period of this application that needs to be acknowledged for the record?
No, I do have the plans for today.
What?
What is this?
It's the same thing that's up online, except for the new rendering that I showed myself.
One.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Please identify you for the records and proceed.
Yes, Steve Deal, land development contractor and Cedar Village Development with Pat Rose, architect.
Try to see.
Yeah, sit down. Signed up on here.
No. This is for the, hold on to that one for James.
Yeah.
That's just fine. This is no, sign.
The drive.
Is there a chair here?
Okay.
And then find that screen.
Yep.
I think at the last meeting, we had ended up that Tony was gonna take a look at the PDD and see how we want to structure,
Right.
putting it together, whether it's would be changing the old PDD, putting the new PDD in place. So that's where we're sort of stuck until we decide that.
Tony, have you looked at that?
I'm sorry, the reception is terrible. It keeps
I know.
jumping all over the place and it's distracting me terribly. Can you repeat that? Because I didn't get it all, Pat.
Certainly, the last meeting that we left off, saying that we wanted to decide how we want to address the PDD, whether we want to amend the existing PDD 60,
Okay.
or we want to change a PDD or put an addendum to PDD 60
Right.
or whatever.
Right, that is not going to be an issue. I did some research and I'm satisfied and I'm comfortable with making this simply an amendment of the PDD relative to site G.
Okay,
Okay, good.
My alternate route is not necessary.
okay, so.
We do have to make amendments. Once we've decided on this project, we have to incorporate those as amendments to the PDD. And we have to specifically clarify that they're applicable only to site G.
To site G, okay.
We're not changing the rules for any of the other sites.
Okay. I had outlined on a document that I submitted originally of PDD 60, the 4 different things that had to change associated with it, which was pretty straightforward as to what it was. One of which was, in the permitted uses, they only had 1, 2, and 3 bedroom residential units. No studios were mentioned at all, so we have to add studio units to that.
Right.
The next one would be minimal floor area dwelling unit. The dwelling unit was 650 per dwelling unit, and then I'd like to bring it down to the 500 for the studio units.
Mhm.
And then the residential parking requirement was 2 per dwelling unit. We know
Right.
that's changed all over the place down there.
Right.
It's gone through. So we had made the proposal of studios, 1 unit, 1 space per dwelling unit. 1 bedrooms, 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, and 2 bedrooms, 2 spaces per dwelling unit.
Right. No separate requirement for visitor then.
No, correct. And those were the 4 things that had to be changed in, or as an amendment to PDD 60.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Those are the main components that have to be amended, but the commission has to also amend the premise of the original PDD 60, which included limitations on the total numbers of dwelling units and the minimum amount of parking, et cetera. So we need to adjust it to reflect the changes that are being made or proposed to be made in site G. Site G is now primarily a residential apartment complex with a little bit of retail, whereas before it was some retail, it was some office space, and it was some condominiums. And it had at a different density. So we need to reflect all of that.
Okay.
And update the overall PDD.
So Tony, I can take a shot at that and then send it to you if you want to. That way you can look at it.
You could if you want.
Yeah. That way, and see if that will suffice for just going for site G.
Yes, I need to get some history, and I'm not sure where I'm going to find it, but I'm going to look for it because the changes that I'm talking about in the PDD were already amended once when I think, what are they, Riverside Apartments, when they went in, it necessitated an increase in the total density, the total intensity of total number of apartments that they could expect down there. And now we got to increase that number again.
Wasn't it 1,000 units? Maybe something around there?
I don't remember the exact number, but I know we were exceeding it. If we left everything else the same and changed it for Riverside, we had to increase the number. And
Right.
we're at a point where if everything else stays the same, but we want to increase parcel G, we need to up that number.
Yeah, it's not a big deal then.
No.
Yeah, and when I looked through the PDD that I was given, which was for all of those sites, which was effective back in 2007. Some of
Correct.
that stuff isn't reflected in here. It's more reflected on the site plan that was issued for the master plan
Right.
of downtown. So
Right.
it's not exactly written, it's graphic.
Oh.
We also need to get something clarified and get us up to speed on the traffic side of it. Originally, that whole Canal Street area was governed by a certificate that had been issued. And that certificate had a life. And when the Riverside condominiums came in, the Riverside apartments came in, they had to get that certificate amended to extend its life for a couple of more years and change some numbers. Now, I'm sure that time has passed, and I don't know what the status is, because if there is no valid outstanding certificate with the State Traffic Commission, then one is going to have to be obtained. So
Yeah.
somebody's got to start doing some research.
Normally certificates of that you have for developments with the OSTA stay in place for the period of until it's changed, until somebody wants to change it. You know, they're all
No,
listed. Actually,
it had a specific time limit. I think it was certificate 714 or something like that.
Yeah, I will go online and look for a certificate for that. You can see them online, and that's something that we'll have to do. And they don't change them until you have an approved project. They don't want to,
Well,
until you have an approved
Yeah, but
project.
wasn't that?
Also, I think somebody needs to fill in the commission as to what is going to happen with respect to improvements on Canal Street. Canal Street improvements have been made, but they stop at a certain point. You've got a very intensive project that has to be served and served properly. And I don't know what improvements somebody is taking responsibility for. So we need to somehow or other get some data on that if we could.
So, Tony, that's done. Stanziel, they're working through that, Paul Grimmer. I know they are having the grants, I believe, is one for the road to finish that. So they're going through that now. And I believe the bridge to open on Worcester as well. Those are two issues that really are gonna have to be done before we build this, close it, CO it. You know, that's gonna hopefully come up this year. You know, even it's a year and a half it takes them. You know, this is gonna take us a while, a little bit of work here.
Yeah.
So that is in the works.
If you look at it from the commission's point of view, they can't comfortably go ahead and say, yeah, go build this project if we don't know who's going to make the road improvements, or are they going to be made?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that answer could be resolved by economic development. Could be the city, subject to having that road done. I mean, it's all part of this project. I'd rather do this now together than have them do those improvements and then us build this.
Sure.
That existing building, honestly, that road with that existing building there, that road cannot be built to where the city would like it to be built.
You mean the building that's in everybody's way?
Right. So
What's the latest status and timeline on that?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to open that Pandora's box, but there's once this is why getting an approval is trying to get closer to getting that building done.
I can only say this, and I'm really talking to the commission now, but because of all these questions that are still outstanding, I think what our procedure will probably be is to take this application request to the point of a decision where we hopefully approve it in the conceptual stage, so to speak. Now, we have a lot more than conceptual plans, but in the conceptual stage. So that at least the applicant then knows, that if he can dot the i's and cross the t's and answer all the questions, he's got a project.
Right.
And then from there, we'll move into detailed development plans, because otherwise I've got 15 or 20 items that you need to give me answers for before we can give you final site development plan approval. So in order to keep the process going, I think one way to do it is to carry this application to an approval of the basic concept plans, the general parameters of density, et cetera, et cetera. And then we will outline some of the major things that are outstanding that we're going to need more information from, and things that are going to have to be resolved in order for you to then take the next step, which is to get your final plan signed off. Okay,
Agreed.
Sounds like a plan.
Does sound like a plan, yeah.
We went a little farther with the plans because, we don't want to come in with just a basic plan again. We want to really do a nice project.
of course, of course.
We won't do that much
you know-
more work after we,
Right.
so it's really to amend the PDD and
Right.
approve conceptual plans.
I was just reading our agenda item tonight, and it mentions in there 192 parking spaces. The plans say 187. So what's the right answer?
The 180, I think it's 8 is my last.
But it's not 192.
Not a lot, 192, when we did the site plans and with the survey, we had to lose a couple here and there to make it all work. So that's where 180.
Also, it mentions 1,745 square feet of retail. You don't have 1,745 square feet of retail. You only got about 900, no? Isn't that what I remember from the plans? By the way, Pat, the only official architecturals are the ones that came in with the application, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I have on my plan, retail space 1790, it's.
Okay, then maybe I just misread.
Yeah.
Okay. So my answer then is,
5, yeah.
will you be accounting for parking for that amount of square footage?
We are currently not.
Okay, so we have a couple of issues that we need to talk about, But
All right, so.
in my estimation, I don't believe it's going to stop us from taking an action, but it is something we're going to have to deal with.
We are dealing with, I have spoke to Mr. Watts, and he's actually on Zoom, I believe, still. If we were purchasing that piece that Pat, even if we do not purchase it, we have an agreement in place, working on the agreement in place to be leasing the spots for across the street.
And
So
who would
which
you be
would work-
leasing them from?
Mr. Watts.
Okay,
And that would be for parking, for visitor parking, people
Okay.
pulling up there, stopping in the store, walking up to the locks. So we
All
do
right.
have something.
So that means you're gonna-
Today.
so I guess what we need to figure this out before we take final actions on stuff, because it really needs to be, I'm not sure how to handle it. We got to have a commitment on that parking. It's got to be a permanent commitment, if you will. It can't be something where you have a lease, the lease expires and you lose that parking.
Yeah, no, well, that's like any parking. It's gotta be more than 3 5s.
It's got to be consistent with something else.
Yeah, well, we're working in.
Who
those
is going to build it? Are you going to build the parking?
Yeah, we would. It's
Your
almost,
deal would-
we would
okay.
do the grading and we would do it. But again, it's nothing to do, I need for the, I'm doing the retail more for people down there. I don't see that many people coming down, but if there are people come down to
I agree.
park, I want to do it for a lot of the apartments that are down there. They could walk, they could have a coffee, a little convenience area, it's maybe to take some pressure off of everybody walking up to the main road. Maybe they want to walk down here. So we're going to have some visitor spots on ours, but this just gives it that bump up for people to get off the road, for
Mhm.
people hoping we're getting people down to look at the lot, at the
Yeah.
waterway and everything. So anywhere we can get parking, we're going to put it.
When do you think you'll have that locked up?
I'm sure within a couple weeks. It
Okay.
really pretty much came about us trying to purchase that, but I wanted to have a backup just in case you woke up and had this question today.
Mhm.
So I just want to have that,
Pat,
so we do.
Pat, on the architecturals, can you explain to me down on the lower level of the parking? Does the parking from under the building flow out into the open? Or is there some segregation between what's outside and what's inside?
The parking level is you have the driveway that comes down and then you go behind the building and there's parking. That's
No, I
available.
realize they can function independently. I
Yeah,
was just wondering,
but
but
there are-
physically, will there be a knee wall or something along the edge of the building or?
Is that the river?
Yeah, I think that what we've talked about is either putting some type of grillage or a knee wall or both, you know, between the two, to try and have a front of the building that's on that lower level that sort of encompasses us better than just being wide open.
That would be my preference, so that the building doesn't look like it's just sitting on stilts out in the parking lot.
Yeah,
You have two different conditions of parking on grade. Underneath that garage, you also have parking that's on the left-hand side. There's 20 spaces that you have to go through the garage to get there.
Yes. Yes.
Get-
To the front,
Yeah, through this, you have to come down and in and into here.
right, there's only one entrance and exit into the
That's it.
parking lot.
And-
That's it. That's the only way.
By the way, you know, there's another alternative to your extra parking that you were looking for instead of across the street is maybe that those 16 or 18 spaces have a deck put on them. Because the deck would be at the same level as your street. Is that worth considering?
Meaning here.
That means you own it and it's all part of your development. You don't have to worry about making a deal with Mr. Wass across the street.
yeah, possible.
Sure,
I just throw that out there, that's all.
that's a good idea.
It's a safety valve, let's put it that way.
So you show cars parked, is that along the Riverwalk that they're parked?
Yeah, there's cars that'll be parked along this portion here, that's closest to the water. And then when you go through the garage, there's some parking that's adjacent to the edge of the river.
Like, these cars are parked,
Yep, there's cars that are parked right here.
They parked in the garage or they,
Here, there's cars parked here.
but they're parked in the garage.
It's not in the garage, it's out, those are outside spaces,
Oh,
just like.
outside.
those are
Yeah.
outside
They
spaces.
still park.
Those-
Yes,
Your
but you
garage.
still have to go into the garage.
Yes, you have to-
But
yeah.
you're showing on this rendering, I could be wrong, but you're showing cars parked here.
Correct, there's a couple cars parked here
Yeah,
on the outside of the building.
Which rendering is that?
These are on the.
it's the
outside
rear
of the building.
rendering,
Oh, we do have a rear rendering.
Yes,
yes.
Why is it not posted?
I don't know, we've been.
I thought we did have it and I went high and low looking for it and I couldn't find it.
You did see it last meeting.
Yeah, I remember looking at something, but I don't have a copy.
Trying to find them.
Let me just.
All I get is what's posted.
I'm just guessing, I'm a little confused as to where the Riverwalk is in relation
Oh,
to these cars parked here.
sure, the Riverwalk is,
In front of
Go
it.
the Riverwalk is here,
Right.
and that is all the way at the edge, all the way at the edge. Behind the Riverwalk, there's cars that are parked on the outside of the building here.
The parking lot and the Riverwalk are essentially at the same elevation.
Yeah, they're all at the same
They
elevation.
can't drive around, that's what it's saying. They have to go through the garage to get out.
Okay, so it's a little, so so that's just a sidewalk width?
Yeah, I think it's 6 foot or 6 or 8 foot, doesn't it?
Pat, did I miss, is that posted? Did I miss it?
Yeah,
Yeah, the rendering,
Yeah, the rendering of the back.
yeah, it is not posted on this site. Let me see if I'll show it to you. Let me just.
So it says proposed 3-foot concrete wall
I
along,
almost called you the other day, Pat.
that's what this says, 3 foot.
Should be bigger than
Says proposed 3-foot concrete wall along property walk. It's only 3 foot wide?
Pat, Ruth just mentioned that 3-foot walk. Explain to me a little bit. Is that like a parapet wall along the edge of the walk?
There's a grade change there, so that's the wall.
So that's the wall, it's a 3-foot concrete wall along the property walk.
I understand, but
That's towards the building now, right?
Yes.
is it to retain support for the walk, or is it above grade as a protective measure?
There's some grade change that happens in that corner of the site, and it's at
Okay.
the outside that is supporting the walk. The
Okay,
walls-
so it stops at the walk level.
Right, correct.
Okay, so then I assume there's going to be some kind of security fencing along
Well, the
there.
offense, yeah, the offense all along, correct.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm not affected, I'm just coming. So where is the river walk in comparison?
The brown.
No, that's the wall. Right? The brown is the wall or the,
This is the walk, that's the
the
walk.
brown,
The brown.
the brown.
This wall is on the outside here. Way on the outside.
By the
Okay,
bulkhead, right?
So it creates an edge
Right.
that changes grade. because
so this arrow is pointing to what? To the wall or to the walk?
Look at something that we can all see. Good raw.
I know. It's on here.
It's a.
Okay,
This 3-foot concrete wall, long walk is on the edge, on the outside edge of the wall, the walk that runs all along.
okay. And how wide is the walk? Because it doesn't say it on there. At least I don't see it.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. It's not on the drawings.
It's not there, I looked there, and I couldn't find it.
Okay,
It's,
if that's a wall.
my belief is 8 feet wide, because I think we're matching what they had done in other places.
And the finish of the walk is going to be the same as what was used elsewhere?
Yes, that's correct.
Lighting, anything that's we have to be consistent with that walk.
Yeah.
I don't even know, is there walk in anywhere? Yeah. Where's the walk stop? All the way down?
I've never been down there.
Well, the walk is by the park where it started. And then it was extended, I guess it was extended by Mr. Geddes when we approved that Riverside complex down there. And I think that's the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's,
Doesn't go
So are you granting an easement to the city for that walk, or are you maintaining ownership of the walk?
what do we,
You know,
that's
how
a
are you
good
handling
question,
that?
because what do we do on all of it?
I
what is
think
done?
normally it's city ownership.
Yeah, it's typically been an easement handed over to the
Right.
city.
But there's difference with it, we're putting it in, so we're gonna do it, we're gonna put that in, the lights, we'll get all that inconsistent with everything else. So, yeah, I guess we're gonna have to,
I think that's something that, again, will have to be worked out with the,
Again, those are the kinds of details that I don't want to get involved with right now. They're on my list, but as long as we've got another stage to approve detailed plans.
yeah, so figure out whether it's gonna be an easement and then the details of that easement.
Right.
Is there? Are we about done?
I'm done, I just want to show Tony the rendering, I just probably figured out how to do it on.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I knew I saw that before. And is that online posted? Because I couldn't find it.
Oh, double, okay.
Over on, like the title.
SP4?
I can't see it.
You just gotta click on the text where it says Tweedy Wolftown Street. On the left,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
that's okay. You might have to.
Yeah, I know, I'll have to find it again. Kim? It's a big file.
Yeah, so the final detailed plan should definitely show the easement
Yeah.
or the river walk with.
the easement, the size, width, the details.
The whole
Yeah.
thing. All right, while we're doing that, do any of the PZC members have any questions for the applicant or his team? If not, Mr. Panico, do you have any comments?
I was just going to ask if if we can get filled in on the status of that critical building that's in the way of everything.
When will it be taken down?
Well, no, I mean, when are you going to get the approval to be able to take it down?
Okay, so again, we're gonna, hopefully, when we get an approval, we will go and start the process of going to get it, you know, through getting it taken down, condemned. Again, it's gonna take a month to get things disconnected, you know, but I'm not gonna start that until we get approval, that's all.
Yeah, I know, but I was wondering, when are you going to have that authority to be able to do it? I know there's a history to the historical aspect of that thing.
Yeah, so it's gonna be rather as quick as I can get something going through with the town to get it taken down. And usually I know on buildings we've taken down, it's usually taken a couple months to get
Oh, yeah.
disconnection.
I'm not worried about getting it out of there. I'm just worried about your right to get it out of there.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of that's, we're gonna have to bear a lot of expense ourselves to do that, you know what I mean? Because of how this is set up, but we do want to get that taken down. It would benefit everybody.
What's the process with those? Like if Tony's correct where it expired, you think it doesn't expire, but if it is, what's the process? Is that something?
Well, if it expired, then you'd have to go for a new certificate, which, I mean, that's why they don't do that, because, you know, then you would have a certificate for an operation that may be still ongoing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that certificate is based on Worcester Street being open or closed.
Yeah, I doubt it.
That's.
Well, I think this is gonna have to be.
I think that's part of the handcuff.
Yeah, and everybody,
Right.
our approval would be contingent upon.
Yeah, we're gonna have,
receiving
how can you,
You know,
it's gonna all have to be in line, the road, the crossing.
so we're just basically approving the
Conceptual.
amendment to the PDD and conceptual.
And the idea of what we're proposing.
And the proposal,
Right.
and the rest is gonna have to be work in progress that we're gonna be doing.
Yeah,
Pat,
that's why we came to the initial development plans, that's it.
Pat,
Yes,
can you, I'm having a little difficulty trying to figure out the relationship between the Riverwalk and the docks. I'm sorry, and the locks.
the locks.
They're right alongside of each other, and I didn't know what's going on. Can you explain it, or is that something that needs more work?
Well, no, I can explain it if I can get this thing to get bigger.
My concern was that particular stretch where the city walk is directly abutting the locks, if that walk shouldn't be a little bit larger in anticipation of the fact that people that are walking along are going to want to stop and look at the locks. Or is there another sidewalk in the property of the locks? I couldn't figure it out from the pictures.
Okay. Let me just get here.
Yeah, right there. That's good.
You can see it, that's good.
Something that says walkway within the site of the locks.
Okay. What it is, you have, this is the sidewalk coming down. But then you go on the side of where the lock is. And
Okay,
this-
what's
this
on the
is-
other side of that line?
This
Is it
side-
on the walk?
No,
No.
this piece right here, this piece, it says stone walkway. That's the
Yeah.
top of the lock. That's actually the top of the lock.
It's
Oh,
not
this-
a walkway then.
No, well, I guess in their eyes it was way back when, and somebody surveyed it, but it's not a walkway. It's
Is-
the lock and it's flat and then it starts going up and then it goes up to a higher elevation.
Are those stairs that I see?
No, that's where the slope is on the lock.
And they have that all blocked off, Tony. There's a
Okay.
gate, you can't get down there.
Yeah.
Well, when we start refining this,
Right next to it, but it starts going way up above you.
Right. So
You
it's a
can't, you
wall.
won't be able to see it. It's a wall at some point.
The lock.
Yeah, the lock is a wall.
Okay.
Because they changed.
Until
the
it
elevation.
doesn't change the elevation, so you can walk up and there's a wall next to you, that's the lock. You'll get to the ramp and that'll go up. And then you'll be at the
So while you're
elevation of
walking
the
past there,
top.
there's nothing.
You're not gonna see it because it's a big,
We're in conjunction with, we're working with them too, Tony. We're actually, they're getting, that's another grant that's, I believe, going through. They were doing some work on, a lot of work on the locks.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that's why we're getting together with them to do this all together at the same time.
Yeah, just keep in mind that where the public walk jogs to go alongside of the locks, that stretch alongside of the locks maybe ought to be just a little bit wider. If we can fit it.
Wider for,
Only because people walking along the walkway might want to stop, pause for a little few minutes and look into the
Well,
locks.
we are, so that's an area, Pat, we doing, I know you don't show it in there. It's true, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to make that whole area an open space.
Okay,
Tables, people could pull over, they can pull
Yep.
over.
Okay.
They can walk over there and sit down.
there's two triangles there that are
Yeah,
available to do something with.
see the two
well,
triangles there?
when we start looking at the refined layout of the sidewalk, of the walkway, we can deal with it.
And if not, I'll just put more parking. It's fine.
That's the area where I thought if you needed, you could put a deck over them too.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's just, all it takes is money.
Well, it's a quick way to pick up 16
Yeah.
acre spaces.
Oh, absolutely.
You gotta pay the other guy anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
This is a good option.
Let me see if there's anything else I want to mention.
Tony, did you say there's something else?
Yeah, there's something else you wanted to mention. Mr. Panico, is there something
Yes.
else you wanted to mention? Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Is there something else you wanted to mention or?
I'm just scanning over my notes, see if there's anything worth talking about now. The minor things, fencing and stuff like that, Kirby. No, this is all relatively minor stuff. I'll have to mention it eventually.
Okay,
Little minor things like, all the on-site curbing needs to be at least extruded concrete,
Absolutely,
no bituminous, okay.
absolutely.
Right.
All right, I think the rest of my questions can hold.
okay, thank you. All right, we will proceed with the public portion and we will move to the public portion and start off with those in the auditorium who wish to speak.
I don't think
There's
anybody
no one signed up.
the sheet underneath your computer.
Next is the hearing for members of the public participating remotely. Those participating remotely would like to comment for new material or application needed in Zoom, raise your hand or dial *9 and your phone to be identified. Mr. Rossetti, Ms. Castro, are there anybody in the public with Zoom?
No,
Raise your hand or how about *9 on phones?
no.
Okay. Any final comments, Mr. Panico?
No, other than what we just spoke about.
Okay, so does a commissions wish to continue close public hearing?
I don't think we
Consensus?
would. Yeah, I don't think we need to keep it open.
All right, is there a motion to close the
I mean,
public
there's
hearing?
nothing else we're looking for other than,
ADD issues.
yeah, that's all.
So do we put in for a contingent on the contingency on the
Well, I think
final
that,
drawings and
I
and
think-
so on and so forth, or conceptual drawings?
well, that would be in the approval, of the resolution,
Okay,
right?
all right. So I would need a,
I think
A
just the
motion?
motion to,
Close the public hearing and
Yeah,
see
I would not-
if any other commissioners have any comments, favorable or.
I asked
If we're
that
gonna move-
before.
If we're gonna have a consensus,
right,
we wanna make sure everybody's on board. It's here,
yeah, or remotely.
right?
Any other commissioners have any thoughts about this?
This Commissioner Ticky, any of my questions on this applicant was actually raised by other commissioners, so I have nothing specific with this. And it was it was mentioned earlier in the discussion about Worcester Street and the access to this road, which is always, top of mind when you see development on this road. So I'm thinking about the egress on and off this particular road, but on this application, no, I don't have anything further to add.
All right, so I'll need someone to make a motion.
Yeah, I would just like to get some info from the applicant about the status of the whole traffic aspect of it. That's the only thing that's bothering me.
So is that
included?
You could close the hearing and leave the record open for them to submit that stuff if you want, but
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's the best way to handle it.
Yeah, so if Tony, if you're still looking for that, so would you suggest that we take a vote tonight toward a favorable resolution, or wait to the next meeting until you
well, I
get that?
don't think you're ready to do that until you put your heads together and discuss it and decide your position and
Right.
how I want to write this thing up.
Okay, all right, so we'll just close the public hearing.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
And this made by Commissioner Perkins, second by Donald. All right. Chair will do the vote, roll call vote. Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Ticky.
Aye.
Commissioner D'Amato, D'Amato,
Aye.
and Commissioner Kelly is aye. Commissioner Mullin.
Aye.
Okay. Forgot you.
So the, we'll
Five to
take
zero.
discussion in a future meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've closed the hearing then.
We close the hearing.
Okay.
I want to know about that word grillage. To make that up. Really?
Village.
Thank you.
Really,
Park.
well. Okay, for
I do make up words, so.
Just check with Alex if he's gonna be taking over.
yeah, okay. Is it,
If you can ask him.
Alex, will you be taking over for the affordable housing?
Ready and waiting.
Okay. Our final agenda item, continuation review of the draft affordable housing plan for the city of Shelton. All right, beginning, I guess we left it off on page 23. Item B and C for continuation to page 25, item E.
Alex under the table?
Well, he's right there.
All right. Everything working?
Yep.
Okay. So we left off our meeting having discussed, we had just kind of gotten into the strategies. We were looking at our current municipality inventory and increasing that when able to, using blighted, severely blighted properties or properties that are dilapidated that the city picks up.
Right.
Deed restricting those. Bullet point number 2 was accessory dwelling units. We will have to make some modifications to our regulations. But the goal there would be to have many of them deed restricted and potentially waive fees for those coming in for an in-law setup and allow them in residential R1 and R2 zones. They are allowed right now, but it says they have to have a affidavit of blood relativity, which is supposed to be renewed every year. Whether or not that happens is questionable. So hopefully this would free things up a little bit. And then in a very simple way, without dramatically increasing, the best part about accessory dwelling units is that you don't have to approve a 200 unit high density residential development. You could have 200 in-laws scattered throughout town and no one's going to know they're there. Many of them are renovations of existing interior space that second floor garage or that wing of the house that hasn't really been used very much, and they renovate it for that cousin or aunt or kid moving back home. So, I think they're kind of a win-win. And then we had moved on to the mobile home parks and working with our state regulators or state representatives to see what we can do to potentially get credit for those units, even if they are rented versus resident owned parks. Of course, that's both a policy thing and something that the city administration will have to work on. But, again, this is an advisory document, a guideline, an action document. It's not a hard, fast rule. It's something that we can all work towards. So before I move on, any questions about those?
Yeah, Alex, what is the requirement on these individual homeowners that have an in-law apartment? Do they have to make a filing every year as well as the apartment owners do, apartment building owners?
Yes, they would have to do that. If they agree to deed restricted, they would have to. Yep.
Okay.
The carrot that we can offer to them is, look, if you're willing to do this, we'll waive your permit fees.
It also takes away, you're taking away the restriction to blood relatives.
Apartment.
Correct.
That's a
Yeah.
one-time thing.
Right,
For one-time deal.
yeah. I don't think that's gonna be enough of a carrot.
Yeah.
It may not, but the past, I don't know, 10 or so in-laws that have come before us, or general conversations I've had with people, I've asked them, would you be willing to do this? I kind of give them the 30-second spiel on affordable housing, and many of them say, yeah, it's going to be sold as a house. My kids are going to buy it, or I'd like to give it to my niece or nephew, or I'm moving into the in-law and they better not charge me rent. So, it better be an affordable unit. So I agree.
What was their feeling about the deed restriction though?
Yeah, that's.
No, it doesn't, no one, not a single person, they thought it was crazy that it was that way. And that's been that way since I've been here. I mean, no one understands the deed. I understand why it was put in place, but I think it doesn't work in reality.
Tonight?
And second, most homeowners, no homeowners update it yearly. And third, there are a lot of new cases coming about housing discrimination with seniors and disabilities and medical issues. And I'm not sure where this would stand, to be honest.
Well, the trouble is we don't get credit if it's not deed restricted, right?
Correct. So that's why I think we
gotta
gotta
talk to our legislators.
well, that's what
That's the biggest drawback to affordable housing.
well, there's always going to be a drawback, but these are the cards that we've got. So
That's
we
the
can
only
either,
thing.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
not gonna change.
You gotta insure it somehow, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Without it being deed restricted, there's no insurance that is gonna continue on as an affordable unit.
correct. So,
Because that deed is, anybody can check on that deed.
yep,
Like, if they're looking at an apartment in somebody's house and that person's looking for $3,000 a year. And that person goes to the maps and sees that it's deed restricted for affordable housing. They've got a legit complaint.
There's
Alex, how would it work if there was an accessory dwelling unit classified affordable and deed restricted? What happens when the property is sold?
it continues.
It stays.
It
Stays, yeah.
it has to be, I mean,
Has to.
it's mandatory.
Yes.
It can't be.
Nope. Minimum 40 years. And many towns, this is another thing to keep in the back of your heads, many towns. And, I'll say of the 15 other affordable housing regulations that I read, maybe half a dozen are saying They're dropping the 40 years and they're saying as long as that building stands or the uses are planned to continue, these X amount of units will remain deed restricted. They make it infinity, basically.
Well, I like that idea though, because if you buy a house and you don't want to have that, or, well, I guess you can remodel your house to eliminate that apartment,
Right, you can reuse it.
right? So then it would come off the deed because
Can
you're no
you?
longer,
Is that permissible?
well, not the
You could-
way it's written now, but the way Alex was just explaining what some towns are doing. Would that be true, Alex?
Well, let me rephrase that. Some towns are removing the 40 years because they want it for 1,000 years, forever.
Or until the use desists?
Well, we would be the same way because we wouldn't have an accessory dwelling unit if they revamped or whatever, and put it back into the house. And used it as part of the.
Can a person give up the affordable unit? That's,
No, that's basically the short answer. No, it's there. And maybe you don't do something like that for accessory dwelling units, but what towns are trying to do is prevent the scenario where in 2060, everyone's looking around, scratching their head saying, wow, they did a lot of work in 2022, but you know, all these units are going to expire and we're back to square one. And
but I guess, okay.
Trying to speak.
Commissioner Amato is trying to speak.
I've been trying to speak
Hold on.
for an hour.
Go ahead.
Okay. So with these reclaimed houses that you're talking about, you see that as something that's gonna be a large contribution to this affordable housing
I don't.
plan?
No.
I do, but I don't.
Yeah, so couple things about that I know you don't, anybody's gonna have the answer to this, but I just wanna put this out there. Building a house from scratch is often cheaper and easier than renovating a house. So, just saying. Like who would do it, under what auspices in the city, who would be responsible for doing any of that? Just a question. And also, who would be responsible for having a process for deciding who gets these places? Like what would be who would be overseeing that? So what kind of process would there be for finding these tenants that would be a fair process and a transparent process?
Well, it would be under the housing authority.
What?
Yeah, I assume that's who would
I don't
control.
know that's, all right, well.
And usually it's an application-based lottery type thing. A lot of times you'll see public notices in the newspaper, legal notices for these
Okay.
apartments. Like if somebody has just built an apartment building and they have so many affordable units, they actually have to advertise those units being available and people have to submit applications.
Okay, well, it's on that.
For the
Yeah, but
apartment
you're not
buildings.
talking about that, you're talking about.
Yeah, she's talking about city-owned.
City-owned
properties.
property, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine they'd be rehabbed with some sort of HUD funding, grants or something like that.
Who would do it though?
Oh,
Yeah.
in the city.
How does the city build stuff? I don't know. I'm just.
Well, they don't build it themselves, they
Right.
hire contractors, they go out to bid,
Okay.
right?
right.
Like right now, the SEDC is handling renovations at Zinsabog for the city because they're able to get the grants, because they're a nonprofit, they're able to apply for grant funding. So they get the grants and then they manage the grants.
Yeah, okay.
And most likely, if it's a blight building, they're probably back in their taxes and whatnot, so it
Right.
most likely be repossessed by the city
Yeah,
anyway.
foreclosed, yeah. The other, about the accessory dwelling units, it's probably a matter of how it's presented to people, because this would allow people to have a rent. In a
Correct.
house forever and ever, and they wouldn't have to go around saying it's a relative or verifying.
Exactly.
But it would be a matter of the understanding that people have about it, probably in
Well, it's-
household.
How would, Alex, maybe you can answer this. Accessory dwelling units, now how would the rent, how would you dictate the rent? How would that coordinate with what the building's worth, or is it a one bedroom, or how would it be done?
The rents are done just like with all the other accessory dwelling units said that we've looked at 80% AMI or less or 60% AMI or less.
No, what's the dollar value though? Would it be contingent on what an apartment would it be, like a one bedroom or studio? or
Yes,
two-bedroom?
yes, yep,
Okay,
yep,
all right.
yep.
That's what I'm trying to get
Based
at,
on
yeah.
size.
Got it,
probably.
yes.
Well, you could have basically, what is it up to?
Well, it's 600 square feet.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
Isn't it
accessory,
600 square for our accessory ADUs?
Maximum 900 square feet.
900 square
900
feet.
square feet.
So that could,
Many of them are one bedrooms really, is what it boils down to.
all right, okay. All right.
So I'm thinking it should also include the ones that exist. You know, that those people might be willing to.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
if they want, if they
Yeah.
wish to. They
There's a
don't
lot
have
of them
to.
too that aren't permitted. Like, there's a lot of
Right.
apartments that are not permitted that the
Right,
city
they're
is
out there.
not aware of. And so the only way they find out is when you go to sell it. And the inspector comes in and he sees that it's not approved, then those people have to get approval before they can sell it. They have to get a permit,
Yeah.
before they can
So-
sell it.
The leading off of what Ruth had just said, you know, our goal would be to send out a notice. Well, first, really nail down an inventory of all of the permitted and questionable in-laws. Do some digging on the internet, you know, try and find them all, send out a notice and say, you know, you have 1 calendar year, 6 months, whatever the timeline may be. Come in, A, do it for affordable, and B, do it for building safety, and do it for yourself, because when you go to sell it, and if it's not recorded, as you just mentioned, you're gonna have a headache. So it's really almost 3 birds with 1 stone.
Mhm.
Ideally, I'm sure there's gonna be challenges, I'm sure there's gonna be wrinkles. But Trumbull did it, and they've got
That would
numerous,
work.
they've got numerous ADUs on their deed restricted list, and, you know, we'll waive the fees. You know, if each one, I think is the fee is like $160. So if we got 100 of these things, it's, oh gosh, $10,000.
Alex, would that include the filing fee to put it on the deed, to have the town clerk record that? Or
I'm
would that
sure
be additional charge?
we can twist some arms and see what we can do.
Yeah, that might be an extra incentive. I mean, it becomes a legal apartment for them, right?
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
don't want to rent it out, they don't have to, but
Right.
if they do, it's legal, but it has to be portable and it's on the deed, so.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a
Absolutely.
win-win. It's just how you spin it to these people, right? How you
Yep.
explain, not spin it, how you explain it.
Spin it.
Yeah, well, it spins really when you're trying to say something that's not.
All right, Alex.
So the other thing, there is a subcommittee on the ADUs. You know, the way we have it now, it has to look like the house, you know, the architecture can't change a one-family house.
Well, it can be separate from the house, from what I understand.
No, it still has to
No.
be connected.
That's
Right?
correct. Yep.
Maybe looking
Okay,
at,
all right.
all, you know, you may be looking at other things, because there are other kind of ADUs. In
Yeah.
some places, they're building separate buildings. which I
Like
don't-
granny pods.
Which,
Right.
which to me would probably not fly.
No, I
Especially in
agree.
our one zone, I don't.
No, so our zoning would not, what do you call it? The regs wouldn't change in terms of the in-law apartment
Of how
regs
it would
right
be
now.
architected.
Yeah.
Correct.
So-
And I know the chairwoman had also said she was not in favor of the detached units or granny pods, you know, kind of whatever you want to call them. And it seems like
Right.
you guys are also in concurrence with that. So I think we leave the design standards alone and just
Yeah.
focus on what's there, try and get them quote unquote on the books, get them deed restricted,
Yep,
baby steps. No, oh, well,
Yep.
not baby steps. There's a lot on here, but start with that first.
yep.
Thank you.
All right. Continue, please,
What
sir.
page are we on?
23.
Okay.
And then I've received an email from Commissioner Ticky, and I believe this is kind of right where we left off last time. asking about USDA and Chaffa mortgages.
Right.
He had inquired why are USDA mortgages not permitted in Shelton? I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry. I did reach out to one of the farmers in Shelton who has apparently used USDA backed mortgages. So I'm not quite sure how that's worked, but I can quickly pull up the USDA map for you guys
Yeah.
and
Okay.
show you.
Mr. Rossetti, I'm gonna excuse myself for 5 minutes and.
Oh, yeah. You guys
Commissioner
need to take a
Parks.
recess?
No,
No.
Mr. Parks.
I don't know, do you need a recess, Elaine? Anybody else need a recess?
Do we have a quorum to continue this discussion?
I don't think we need a
Yes.
quorum to continue.
Well, we don't, but we do, because you're Commissioner Ticky, there's 2 of us here still.
There's 4.
We have 5 commissioners
There's
sitting
5 here.
tonight, so, yes.
Okay.
So USDA is what?
US Department of Agriculture.
Agriculture. So would that be for like if you have housing for workers?
It could be. There's a variety of things. I did not dive into the details of what USDA mortgages offer because my first question was, can we get them? And the answer was no.
Okay.
So I wasn't gonna fight it. But apparently there are some farms up by Monroe that have used these mortgages, and so I will find out from them to see if they are, depending on their status as a property, if they are then allowed to use it. But Chaffa mortgages were allowed, and there are some homes that do use Chaffa mortgages. Let me go back to so 118 mortgages. Chaffa. As part of our new website for the city, which will hopefully be unveiled this year, we have discussed having a page for new residents, that would cover everything from school, trash pickup, whatever. And one thing would definitely be to need help with a mortgage, find out some information, click this link. And just, let nature do its course. And hopefully we can bring those numbers up. Not a whole lot we can do here, but hopefully we could direct some foot traffic into these mortgages and reach out to the real estate agents within the area, make sure they know what they are, make sure they have the right material, and see if they're up to speed on it.
When I dealt with Chapit, it changed periodically. They had different terms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I applied for one and it was a lottery. So when I was building my little house, when I built my own house, the first time I tried to get a mortgage, it was a lottery based mortgage.
Right.
And I was surprised, and it was like a 3-to-1 chance and I didn't get it. And then shortly after that, it was a different terms and I did get it.
Okay.
So I think they may have different programs.
Could be,
I don't know.
as
I haven't
interest
dealt with
rates,
it in a
as
long
interest
time,
rates
but
change and that sort of thing, maybe.
different people they would focus on. So the second time around, it was, I forget, but I qualified, I got it, so it wasn't a lottery thing.
Okay, so maybe they were not getting the response they hoped for and they opened it
I
up
don't
to
know.
a larger
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, I don't know, they may change criteria
Yeah.
periodically, income requirements and. Yeah,
Interesting. Never applied.
So I just quickly Googled, average mortgage rate, 30-year fixed in Connecticut, 20% down payment, good credit score, et cetera. It says 7.2%. Chaffa says 6.15%.
I had a big discount when I got
It's not
it, big
huge.
discount.
1% is not huge at all.
When I got mine, the average rate was somewhere around 18.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
anyway, that's those.
But that chapel also is usually no down payment.
It varies. They do have down payment assistance or not.
Right.
There are a lot of different options.
Yeah, a lot of different.
Does it have a value? I mean, you can't be I don't think you could be building $1 million mansion.
There is a cap. I don't know what the cap is. Yes, I believe you're correct.
Okay,
Yeah, it's so. Based, yeah.
driven, yeah.
Okay,
All right, sir.
All right. Moving on to item C was legislative. And this would tie in with our friends all over the place working at the state level, from maybe a commission member here tonight or other state reps, to see if there's any way municipalities can acquire some points for naturally occurring affordable units.
That aren't.
Whether that's, half a point for units in a multifamily or a mobile home park.
Yeah, so those wouldn't be deed restricted.
The points would not be deed restricted.
No, so let me refresh your memory briefly. I'll see if I can get up to it quickly. The way the city can earn points is basically broken down like this, right? If
What page
Where?
is that?
this is page 17. Right now, all of these, if for mobile manufactured home and a resident owned park, we would not receive any points for the mobile home parks in Shelton right now, because they are all tenant based. They are not resident owned. And so the reason for that is because resident owned parks secure long-term affordability because they're resident owned, versus if they're tenant owned, their rent may be subject to change more quickly. Their space may not be reserved. It's just more subject to change.
Okay,
And same thing kind of goes with elderly units or just various other types of units. You can make your way down through the list, whether it's an accessory dwelling unit or an elderly unit in another development application. It would just be nice if towns could acquire some points for market rate units that are under the affordability thresholds, but that just aren't deed restricted.
all right. I have a question. On the mobile homes, what would it take to get points for them? Other than, no, I mean, is that for legislation?
Yes,
For-
state,
Yes.
state, right, yeah.
So I also have a question, and I actually have it noted under, I don't know, like page 25 or 26. Yeah, actually on page 26, but since we're on the subject, elderly housing, elderly units, like we've got the state funded or the city funded, Sindbach Heights, Helen DeVal.
Yeah.
What about condos? Like, the ones you mentioned, Ben Perry, right?
Right,
Crossroads.
Right.
You mentioned those are coming online. Now, those are not affordable in terms of, I guess, their market rate, but they're not restricted either. I don't believe he's restricting those.
no,
He's selling it as an over 55, but unless it's in the condo declaration as being restricted, does that count?
No.
So I have a question on the, housing complex, the views of Long Hill. There's over 162 units up there. They're restricted in their deed, not their deed, it's, I couldn't find the deed because it looked like United Methodist sold the land to the city back in 82 or something. And then I couldn't find the deed from the city, if it was the city that owned the land, to the developer. But it is in their declaration that it's designed specifically for occupying by elderly families consisting of at least one person who is at least 55 years of age. That's 162 units. We get a half a point for each one of those. That's 80 affordable units.
Let me see if I can grab one thing. Um, I don't have my list with me, but I was starting to break down exactly where our points are coming from, with help from the state. Yes, if there are, whether it's ADUs or existing infrastructure at, with United Methodist, there are units that meet these requirements that we're just not capturing.
Well, so this is not part of United Methodist, right?
It's not? Okay, sorry.
This is a totally independent, separate condominium complex. And it's always been designated, it used to be designated for over 55, that over 50. But then there's a change to their, an amendment to their declaration that changed it to that one member living there has to be over the age of 55. So I don't know if they did that to keep it more of a senior community, but somebody residing in that unit by declaration, which is technically their rules, bylaws, has to be over 55. So I think we should definitely look into the possibility of that, getting credit for that complex. So that's a lot of units. And it's totally independent of the United Methodist. It's not part of the United Methodist property.
Got it.
It's called the Views of Long Hill.
Now, where would that fit into this?
Well, it's senior housing.
Yeah, but it's under the units.
So that's what I'm saying, rather than it being actually, it's not, I wasn't able to find the deed of the land. So I'm unsure how it's deeded. But I know the bylaws, which is the governing documents for that complex, it's over 55. So definitely worth looking into.
Yeah. So all the senior units are worth some points.
Half a point at
Yeah.
least, yeah.
Yeah. Quite a lot of them.
Yeah,
Does that
get
count?
80 points.
Does that count like Crosby Commons? Oh, that's
That's the good living.
Yeah.
They have Wesley Heights, they have assisted living there that's cheap.
Yeah, the cottages.
And well, not just that, but also an assisted living that I think they take Medicaid,
Yes.
which is unusual, but those might fit in.
Those, I believe we already get credit for.
Yeah, okay, just because they're all senior housing, yeah. Okay. Anyway. My goodness. Let's do this.
Okay, Alex.
So next part would be increasing the affordability set aside requirements. This is where we would make the most ground on after the in-laws, after we look at our existing housing stock. For new housing stock, this is where the commission could make the most headway on acquiring points and getting closer to our 10% affordable housing
think-
inventory.
Ruth, you've made really good points on that subject. We're never gonna get anywhere just asking for 10%.
No, No,
It's
and
too
the
late.
problem is, people are and rightfully upset about all the housing projects that could possibly come in under 830 that we will not have any control over
Right.
unless we get
Yeah,
to that point.
yeah.
So, we've got to make that move. It may not be popular with some of the developers, but hey, it's not like they're losing a lot of money.
No, they're gonna have guaranteed tenants,
Right.
right, forever and ever. There could be housing, you could end up with excess apartments
And
at some point.
less, exactly, more supply, less
Well,
demand.
Alex?
Yep.
If that was, the 80 and 60%, now that is deemed on the gross pay or whatever of the individual or the family, am I correct? So what happens if that pay increases? Does the rent go up? And who polices that?
So if a tenant's rent increases beyond the affordability threshold set by the state, they do not count. They are
Not
above,
eligible.
correct, they are uneligible. So,
You're no
when-
longer.
So that rent would go up to
So-
what they.
correct, that rent would increase to market rate. Then the next available unit in that development would have to be rented at the affordable rate by a individual or family meeting the threshold of affordability.
And there's
All right.
usually a waiting list.
All right, suppose it goes down.
Then they're fine.
Here.
Okay.
So, Alex, is somewhere in the appendix, though, that's saying that these developments have to show exactly which apartments are affordable. So that
So-
that wouldn't even work, because of these kind of scenarios.
Yeah, so the reason why that is in there, and this is a little bit of a change, not a change. The reason why that's in there for when the project first opens
Yeah,
is so that when inspections are done by our staff and the building officials, we can check and say, all right, this apartment especially has to be as good as all the others.
Right.
all right, yeah.
And it also is a visual cue for those of us reviewing all of these plans, or we could, maybe they highlight the affordable ones that they're going to start with, and we can say, oh, there's 100 units here, and these 20, that way, based off of, you might have some with 2 bedrooms, 1-bedroom studios. It's easier to keep track of how many there are. We don't have to do that. It just, I was reading through these other plans. It seemed like that was a common practice, so that land use commissions and building officials could see, all right, this is what they're starting with, and then moving forward, then it's just going to constantly be in a state of flux. But that does not have to be. If you guys say we don't care which ones start off, as long as we know the numbers are there, then that's fine. We can take that out.
So we're not gonna do a ratio. In other words, say 15% of the project should be deemed affordable housing. Do we break it down to studios, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom? Like
Well,
15%?
We've always asked that it be proportional to the.
Is that what we're gonna still?
That it abide by.
Portion to the overall mix.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I think
fine.
that's a fair practice.
And the other thing is that they should not be easily identified so that you can tell who's living in,
Correct.
who's living in an affordable unit. You shouldn't be able to, nobody living in that building should know where the affordable units are and who's living in them.
That is correct.
I mean,
And that's better because you're sure that there's no differentiation in the quality of the affordable unit.
Exactly.
Right.
and that's, you got to remember, the affordable unit might be an affordable unit 1 month, and the next unit, it's a market rate unit.
Right,
Right,
You're right.
Right.
True.
right.
True. You're right.
Yeah, what happens when somebody gets a roommate? And they're,
Well,
income apartment goes.
they'd have to be on the lease. They can't just move in, they'd have to be added to the lease, and once they're added to the lease.
Oh, you
the
don't
income-
know.
I'm just throwing out.
You're right, you're right.
That's
They become ineligible.
That would be no different for anybody who's renting. If they took in an additional people, they would have to let the landlord know.
Yeah,
They
and
get-
then the income.
Well, they're supposed to let the landlord
the
know.
income.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, if the person's not working,
yeah. Maybe it
I
was,
suppose they could say, you know, if that person's not working,
it's just sleeping on the couch.
I don't know, yeah.
No.
All right, Alex.
So I know Ruth was probably heading this direction as far as how do we want to break down percentages of deed restricted units? So the first chart, oops, at the top of the page here, this is just kind of a quick summary of what's below. So for any project with between 5 and 20 units would be required to restrict 10% at the highest level of affordability.
Okay,
And I'll kind of explain my rationale for why we came up with this. Any project between 21 and 50 units would have to do 12% affordable, with 70% of those units at 80%, 30% of those units of the 12% at 60% AMI. Between 51 and 100 units, 16% of the total count would have to be restricted. Of those restricted units, half would be at 80%. And then that doesn't add up to 100%. What did I do there?
I was gonna mention that,
Six,
that
six,
line and the next line, they don't add up.
before the, why is this so weird?
That one doesn't either.
Let me go back to the Excel sheet. What did I?
Maybe you meant 60-40?
No, I brought it to 50. Let me see, F 12, 18. Sorry, 1 second. What the heck?
Those are very ambitious numbers.
Well, hang on. Don't jump to conclusions just yet. Number affordable. Yeah,
the other two is 30, 50, it's only 80. Going down. So 90, 90.
I was doing like 40 or more, 15%.
F 12.
Yeah, you want help, right?
Yeah.
Alex, I'm wondering if, was it like declining by 10%? So was it 100, 70, 60, and 50? And then the other side would have been 30, 40, and 50. So the right.
I think so. Yeah, I'm just making sure that lines up with.
That's what I had noted here. That might make
Okay.
sense with the math.
So,
That's pretty onerous on a large unit, a large development though, isn't it?
okay,
It makes a
so
lot of money.
hang on. So let's look at the actual math. All right. If here's the market. Oops, I'm not sharing my screen.
Okay.
If a 1-bedroom unit rents for $1,700 per month at market rent,
Mhm.
if the top tier, meaning the 80% affordable unit, rents at $1,000 a month, and then the 60% unit rents at $850 a month.
Half the price.
Yeah. For units between the numbers of 5 and 20, those are the hardest to have deed restricted units just because of economies of scale. So
Mhm.
if you have a complex with only 5 units, they're going to lose 12% of their revenue by deed restricting just one unit.
Yeah, because you're requiring really 20%, not 10.
Correct. So
Yeah.
then if you get to a unit with 20 units and you ask for 10%, right, then their change in revenue is 6%.
It's 2 units.
Can I ask a question here, Alex?
Yep,
This chart we're looking at here, are these going forward? These are people who are building new units? Or is this everything, the whole ball of wax?
this,
What are we looking at here? We looking at units going forward, what we're telling people they have to do?
yes, this would what a guideline for developers to follow when they come in with a new application. All right, I want to build 70,000 or 75 units. How much is the commission going to ask for in terms of deed restricted when they come in?
Now, I understand what you're saying now. So this is, I wanted to make sure that this was new housing. So
Correct.
we have new housing here. So if you move over, everybody's blocking, but on the right, you have what they would have to rent the unit for.
No, it's market rate.
And so
Okay.
on,
And, well, I'm being blacked out, but I have it here on a sheet. And I made a note that I said that, the average unit below was $1,800 for, a 1-bedroom. Okay? And you were saying here that they would have to rent it at 1,805. I believe, why did I see that? Am I correct? They would have to rent that 1-bedroom at 1,805.
Oh, that's to offset affordable units.
Right, the offset number I'm looking
so
at.
if the units, if a market rate unit is rented at $1,700 a month, the column on the far right indicates what the rent
But
would
that
have to.
I'm asking you, that 1,700 is an average.
Yes,
Okay, so I'd have to assume that the person building a new unit can get above the average.
well, sorry, that average, that 1,700 is an average of new apartment projects in downtown.
Okay, now
It's-
that changes it. Okay,
So that's,
Instead of 17, he's got to get 1805.
correct.
right.
Well, yes,
So you're saying 17.
Total return.
17 is the market average now for that apartment.
for example, yes,
Right, okay. And he would have to get 1,805.
On the remainders, right?
correct. On the market rate units, so if,
So in other words, I'd say for a second 20, he'd have to get 1,805 on 18 of the units.
To get the
It's
same.
in order to get the same total return from the investment.
Exactly.
But maybe they don't have to get that much.
Why do we care?
Yeah, what do we care?
Why do we care?
Yeah,
You know,
they're only gonna be able to
They're-
charge.
they're
what
making
the market
money.
allows.
You're right, market
And
rates.
they
You're right.
will decide if it makes sense. Right? or not.
exactly. But again, you know, the affordable rate is not that much less. It's just a little bit offset to help these people who aren't making good money or don't have a roommate. You know, it's just, that's what makes it affordable.
We'll see. Developers want to do it. They can't do it under those terms, they won't.
Exactly. But they have to know upfront. Right now, they just come in, no, we'll give you 10%, that's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and this is up for, if you guys say, look, push the numbers. Okay, I'll happily amend this and come back to you guys.
It's
Um,
interesting. We're not here to guarantee that they make the same income they would make
Right.
at market rates. I
No,
mean,
it's not, that's not our problem.
It's an interesting.
They want to build in our town. This is what we have to do to protect ourselves from unwanted developments.
Yeah,
I hear you.
Correct.
I
That's
just
the
wanted to show you guys what, you know, at the end of the day, they make money off of rent. So what is it gonna cost them, or what they will have to pass off to the market rate folks to balance their books? So, you know, at it's,
And
That
it's-
is, they can't pass it off.
And if they want to come out whole, that's on them. They're gonna risk not renting out the apartments at the high rate that they're charging.
Should we be worried on, on the amount of units that they build? Or should we be worried on the percentages of what we want for affordable units? In other words, if they build 5 units.
Well, they
it's
get
still-
more.
I know, but would it still be the percentage that we want? Say 15% for 5 units, 15% for 200 units? Is that what we want?
No, because the more units they're getting, the more units we should be getting,
Okay,
right? If it's
The whole
large-
premise of this table is that it's a PDD project
Right,
right, exactly.
where there's flexibility in how many units they build. Because if it's a project that's being built under specific provisions of the zoning regulations, then we have a way out because we can grant bonuses. But when it comes to a PDD, there is no preset density. So they naturally try to, as you've seen time and again, they come in with numbers that we find unrealistic and we keep cutting them back. Well,
Right.
maybe we reflect some of this requirement when we think about cutting back densities. For example, the project up on Land Yankees,
Right.
they went from, what was it, 62 to 52?
I think it was 63, was it 63? Something, yeah, in that neighborhood.
I
You're
mean,
right.
they knocked off 10 units. And if we then tell him, okay, but out of the other 10, you got to set aside 15% open as affordable. He's going to say to himself, I think, maybe I should have only gone down 5 units and give up the other 5 for the affordables. You know what I'm saying? The
Well, yeah.
analysis becomes very complex. It's very
Yes, yes.
difficult to reduce it to a table. These are guidelines, and that's what they should be looked at as.
right.
But in most cases, they can justify it. They can work it out.
But it'll give them pause to not come in and request an exorbitant amount because they're gonna have to come up with a lot of affordable units.
Mhm.
That's the trade-off.
Well, as a caveat, we could give them
Yeah,
more of a density for the affordable.
For more affordable.
Right.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
because what you can say, for example, is we think this development is 10 units too dense.
Correct.
However, in order to offset some of the
That's what I'm thinking of.
penalty that you're getting with the affordable housing, we're only going to call it 8 units too dense. So we're going to give you 2 units that we would have otherwise taken away. And it's that kind of playing that we've got to think about and have in mind when we go through the negotiations. And we have 2 on the books right now that we're trying to decide. The one at 301 Old Bridgeport and the Land Yankee one.
Right,
I mean, maybe we turn around and tell Land Yankee, okay, we want 15-16% open space set aside for affordable, but we're willing to say, rework your plans and try to recover a couple of the units that you took out. I also, while we're at it, I'm thinking ahead to the project downtown, the one we were just discussing tonight over
Cedar.
on Canal Street.
Yeah,
yeah.
126 units. And we're going to be asking him for what, 20% set aside? That's going to take a big hit for him. So I'm saying to myself, maybe to offset that, we should suggest that they go back and re-examine their plan and try to recover some of those units by, for example, putting in a few penthouse units. Add another floor over just a small portion and pick up 10 units.
yeah. The
10
only thing,
high-priced units.
Tony, we have to worry about is the parking.
Well, but there's an answer to that too. You saw me throw it out casually tonight.
Yeah, I
On the
did.
left-hand side, he's got that parking lot that's sort of down below street level, but an open parking lot with, I don't know, 18, 20 units, or 20 spaces. That parking lot could very easily, and he agreed, could very easily be decked over. And now
Yeah.
you picked up 18 or 20 parking spaces so you can handle the slight increase in density.
No, the only thing I'm saying, is we gotta make sure that we're covered with our regulations also.
Yeah,
Okay, but I'm thinking ahead here because before long, you're gonna come to a consensus and tell me to write up a resolution on that job.
That's why we put a pause on it, Tony.
And then if you turn around and tell me, yeah, let's go ahead and approve it, but the resolution is gonna say you got to set aside X percentage for affordable units. Well, then
Correct.
maybe that's the point in time where we reopen the door for him to say, if you have some way of expanding your project in order to overcome some of the affordable units, then bring it in and let's talk about it.
That's gonna be easier at Yankees, because they have the open land there. But
Land Yankees and the other one, so.
Yeah, but that's why I said, if we approve those right now, we're missing an opportunity.
right, so those
Well,
are.
that's why we're holding off until you folks get comfortable with what you think you want in numbers.
Exactly.
And then you use that background in your decision.
Well, Alex's proposed numbers are a lot more conservative than what I was going for.
I'm sorry?
Alex's numbers were a little bit more conservative than what I was going for.
That's just a starting point,
Is
Yeah,
this,
and again, remember, these are guidelines, folks.
right,
Right.
But if it's written.
But
Yeah,
well, again, this is a guideline, so when they come in, if we see that it's a good development. Or that there really is no way for them to increase, or, and again, that's the luxury of the PDD, we have that control.
Yes.
We have that discretion,
Mhm.
so, it may, we may say we want 15, but 13 may be the best that they would do. Based on still being a reasonable project, I mean, we don't want to start approving ugly projects just for the sake of getting additional units.
Right, exactly.
We still have to be,
we can have 830Gs for those.
right, exactly, exactly.
That's to say.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, and we also have to be reasonable that they don't go for the 830G, right?
Yeah,
So it's a fine line to walk there.
Well, once we accumulate enough affordable units to meet the threshold for the state, then we will no longer be vulnerable to 8-30.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to keep acquiring them because
Yep.
after 40 years.
You could fall off and lose your exemption.
Status, yeah.
Correct. So it's
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 a
gotta
never
keep-
ending battle.
so I would just like to ask you guys here, the commission members, would you like me to, rework these numbers again and see how aggressive we could push it, before, as Ruth mentioned, that, it would really drive someone crazy, or do you guys want to leave them alone and see where it takes us? And you can always ask for more. The one thing I would say is it's probably easier to back down. This would be sent out to developers before they submit as, hey, here's where we're thinking, be ready to field this.
Mhm.
Yeah, Alex, this is Commissioner Ticky. I just think on that point, we have seen folks applicants might be more challenged to increase after seeing guidelines, whereas if we shoot higher and then we are able to work with applicants and see what works, in that proposal for us to come down, because even though we are saying this is a guideline and it will be just a guideline, I think it'll be a real challenge for us to argue that we want to see more when we start a process. And just as maybe applicants come to us with a little higher in anticipation that things will be knocked down, we might want to be aspirational here and having some bigger numbers and striving for more affordable and showing the state we want more affordable. And then we're willing to work with applicants to pare that down if it just won't work.
Yeah, it's unfortunately that sometimes though, you just can't put more units on the property. The 301 Old Bridgeport Avenue, that project started out from day one. It was just too dense. It wasn't fitting on the site. And we did what we did because we felt that's the way they had to go to get this thing down so that it would fit. So you can't really give back.
Well,
But,
that-
but
Yeah,
the
but
other case on Land Yankees, I mean, he took a whole floor off,
yeah.
okay? But he also took the parking off from under the building. Well,
Right.
maybe he's got to go back and search for a compromise in between that works for him and works for us.
Okay,
I agree with Commissioner Ticky. I think we need to set a bar higher and then be able to negotiate down.
I agree.
fair enough. So let me rephrase this. I would, any project over 100 units, what percentage would you like to see? 25%, 20%? I mean, if you're at 30%, they're just gonna do an 830G anyway.
I like if we went up to a 25% of 100, did you say 100 units, Alex?
Of 100 units or more.
101 plus.
Okay,
Yeah, I would do, well, I personally, I'd be fine with starting at 25 there, and then we go from there with an applicant.
okay.
For
So,
101? it's
For
25.
101.
okay. And then on the low end of that,
But we're raising it only 3% of what you have.
correct.
Okay.
On the low end of that, for units, I'm sure you guys understand, if you're only doing 5 units, one asking for 10%, that's really 20%. So you we can't do any less than that.
No,
But-
that's true.
But from 5 to 20 units, are you comfortable with that? Or would you like me to break that up further so that it's 5 to
Well, that's
10 units, you only do 10%, and then when you go above 11, then you maybe have to do more.
Well,
I would be
either
interested in
that
breaking
or
that
just
down.
say on 5 or less units, you don't have a requirement.
That's correct. It's not really.
That's how I would put it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should break it down further, so it's not all lumped together 5 to 20.
Okay,
I agree.
all right.
You're
And so,
fine. You're-
so, 5 to 10, 10%, and then
6 to
11.
10.
Yeah, 6
5 or
Okay.
less, 5 or less, nothing.
Okay,
6 to
okay.
10. 6 or 20, whatever you want to use.
6 to 10%, and then from 10 to 20.
Oh, the 11.
Then 11 to 20. You'd have 12%. And 21 to 50. 15.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
And 51 to
99, right?
100.
you can just make it 100. 51 to 100.
Will be 20.
Would be 20, good.
20%.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what was 11 to 20? 12%? You went 10,
11 to
12,
20 would be
15,
11 to 20 was 12.
right?
21
And
to 50 is 15.
Okay,
51 to 100, 20. And then 101 plus, set it at 25.
okay.
Mhm.
Stay level after that.
yeah.
Alice, how does this relate to that middle housing concept where you're doing duplexes and multifamily housing?
Okay, so first, let me just save this. So I'll update, the related charts, so that way you guys can see how the numbers actually work. From going based off of this up here. How does this relate to the middle housing? So if we look at that chart, let me find it. Where was it?
Alex.
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt everybody, but it's very important. But I have a previous commitment that I have to go to. Does that upset the quorum with everybody? Do we still have a quorum?
Not voting on anything.
We're not voting, we're still okay.
Well, yeah, we still have a quorum because we'll still have 4 people. We're
All
gonna,
right.
I think we're gonna try to wrap up by 9 o'clock anyway, so.
Because we're not gonna finish this.
I know, but I have to be somewhere in a
No,
few
no,
minutes.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, Commissioner, we still have quorum. Thank you.
All right, I apologize and thank you for the time on this, because this is important.
All right, have a good night.
Good night.
Just want to jot down in the
Yeah.
minutes that he left it, say 8:46. I can't find that. Yeah, and I mean, the other, the thing is, the other commissioners have to weigh in on this too, so there's gonna be another conversation regarding this, but I think that's a really good starting point.
So here's that chart that I think Elaine is referring to.
But how are those counties, how do they count towards affordable? If there's,
Well, by the count, right?
but they're not deed restricted. I mean, we're saying 1 to 5 has no, we're not gonna ask for anything.
Right, so if it's a duplex with 2 units, there'd be nothing, they just do it. If it's a like a 4-family house, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
So none of this counts towards.
It could. So take, for example, let's say Kenny Scheibel's project on
Yeah.
River Road. Those are all kind of, let's say those are, what would you call those? Townhouses, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're townhouses, right?
He's got approval for something like 30 of them, right? So if
Right.
he's got approval for 30 and we would then ask for 12 or 15%. So he would have to deed restrict 4 or 5.
But I'm just saying, promoting this idea of this middle housing supposed to somehow help with getting more affordable units. I'm not.
So this unfortunately doesn't necessarily tie into affordable housing. This ties into general housing conversations about housing variety. We have a lot of single family homes, right? I think there's something like 3/4 of our housing stock is a traditional single family house, and we've seen more and more of these mid-rise developments. This middle housing is what you might see on the outskirts of the downtown area. I'm a little bit on River Road. But other than that, there isn't a lot of it. And this has to deal with more of our conventional zoning, our R3, R4, R5 zoning that allows for the duplexes and the triplexes, and medium density type housing that is in those downtown areas.
But they don't get counted as affordable.
If it's a standalone project,
Yeah.
if you buy one lot and you want to tear it down and rebuild a triplex or duplex, that does not get accounted. If someone was tearing down or building, 40 duplexes, then yes, we would count those.
Right.
Except this is a case in point where maybe a provision in the regulations for a bonus if he's willing to make it affordable.
Sure.
In other words, if it's something where as of right, he could build a 3-family house or 3-unit thing, maybe you let him build 4. As long as the 4th one is affordable.
Yep. Yeah, we could.
Those are the kind of things we can play around with in the regulations.
Yep.
Being creative.
Yeah, and honestly, from one developer in particular who came before the commission last year to revamp, do you remember the 5-family house on Howe Avenue that was remodeled and turned into a 6-family? He was granted a variance by zoning board of appeals. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
I've had conversations with him since then, and he said, well, I'd really like to buy some of these in the downtown area. I like doing those projects. Would the commission consider a density bonus? That would really make it work. Up until now, I haven't been able to say yes or no, but if that's something we're interested in, and I think it does make sense.
I wouldn't make it as of right, but I would make it a possible, within the ability of the commission to grant it or not grant it.
Yeah,
Sure.
upon site plan approval.
Yep. And he was fine with it. And I know he doesn't speak for every developer and homeowner out there, but he.
As long as they understand the condition of what they have to, the requirement of filing paperwork and that sort of thing, that's gotta be made clear to them, that it's not just. You get to just get the unit and
Yeah,
do
make
what you
it-
wish,
Well, for one thing, it has to have the deed restriction on it.
right,
Yeah,
right,
so,
but they
you
have to
know,
understand that there's a filing.
on the staff side, one of the
Process.
things that we would have to be sticklers about is you're not getting a final CO until we see the paperwork,
Yeah,
Right,
period. And,
Yep.
Right, that, I think that makes it pretty clear if,
Yeah.
you know, all right, I know we all want to keep moving, so I'll do some work on those numbers. I'll send it back
Gotcha.
out. Oops, gotta share our screen again.
oh,
Is it the computer or is it the owl?
Well,
It's the
Um,
owl, it's been doing it all night.
yeah, it's annoying.
the increasing the, actually, I think we talked about this at the last meeting a little bit, increasing the downtown special development area,
expanding it, yeah.
expanding it would allow for greater application variety, a greater just area for these to come in, and allow for infill in areas where there currently aren't allowed to be proposed. But just by opening up the doors a little bit, we might have access to more housing options. And you can see in that, in the chart here, this is the current SBA area and then the SDA area that we would be proposing, so. like,
Why would
basically,
you not go further west on Center Street?
we can, if the commission would like to.
I mean, there's a lot of old buildings there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also am wondering if the regulations for mixed use would have to be in place for all that expanded area. In other words, how much retail, you're not gonna need retail under every building. Maybe allow some street level apartments. That might be an enticement too.
So by
Well-
increasing this special development area, the biggest door that it opens is for PDDs, which are then come before you. So if the commission says, look, up here on Oak Avenue or Clint Street, we're not going to require first floor retail, you can say it right then and there.
Mm. I would definitely extend it out to where, what's that? Is it Cross Street? I'm not sure. What's that little side street that comes out after, Jobs Bakery? That feeds into
Oh,
one.
you're saying down here. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Center Street. It would be,
I guess it would go all the way down to where Jobs Deli is, right?
yeah, Long Hill Avenue, is that dump out down here?
Long Hill Avenue on the same side, yeah.
Yeah, what?
That's the only one that comes in.
Yeah, where that comes, where Long Hill Avenue.
Sullivan Avenue, Sullivan Avenue.
Sullivan
Yeah, that's way down though.
Yeah,
Cause I mean, there's a lot of properties there that could definitely be rehabbed.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to put a map together with existing land uses and then discuss how best to expand it.
The only thing, the only negative thing about what we're talking about, I see, is that, every time if someone has a project down in this area, we're always adamant about traffic control,
Right.
parking, so on and so forth.
Deliveries.
We gotta make sure that we're not giving something away that we really have to focus on in order to do something else.
It would have to be self-sufficient on site.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Well, the Jobs one, every once in a while, there's a delivery issue, but I think that's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's,
They put the apartments up above.
that's a flag we always have to look at.
I just think it should be that, because that's the entrance to downtown. right?
Correct. I agree.
I
So
agree.
the last, okay, well, Tony and I will start putting together a plan we're hoping to get some updated plans from one of our consulting companies. Not plans, maps, some higher quality maps with zoning information on them. The last section here that we just didn't talk about was offer greater housing variety for seniors, which we already kind of hinted on. But when you looked at the data of the baby boomer population, the data regarding our current population stats in Shelton and Fairfield County, it's aging. There's going to be a big demand for senior housing, a whole variety of senior housing. And so, whatever we can do to offer those people the chance to continue to live here, I think would be beneficial. And I know the chair and perhaps some of you have had conversations with other departments of the city about trying to locate parcels or earmark parcels that would be ripe for a senior living community. And so that's something we can continue to pursue. That might be a public-private partnership.
Alex, I have a question about the 6 unrelated persons per family dwelling.
That's already in our regulations.
That's already in there. So this you
How
can.
does anybody even know, or that's?
We've approved a couple of those. There's ranch style houses that
And
it's a
6
community.
unrelated persons living as an individual housing unit.
Correct.
That. I'm just
No.
saying, anybody who has a house somewhere, if they had 10 roommates, how would anybody know or care?
They know and they care. Let me tell you. They
And how
know.
does that relate to getting more affordable?
Yeah,
units?
does that count?
Unfortunately, it does not.
It does
because-
not.
Because that is one unit.
Yeah,
And that's the reason why they are allowed to cohabitate together, is because it's not room and board, it's not renting out an apartment, it's 6 people living together in one unit, sharing all the spaces, sharing all of the amenities.
So that's not a plus
So
at
it
this
has
point.
nothing
So
to do
why
with
would it
this
be?
topic.
Why is
So
it not?
it's under amend zoning regulations. Why would we
Correct.
amend?
We don't have to. Tony corrected me, and this is something that we would need to remove. The only amendment I would encourage us to make is to clarify that it would be only for R1 and R2 zones.
Okay.
The reason being that I've received phone calls, so that those 2 homes that we approved for the seniors to live together,
Yeah.
Right.
I've received phone calls from people wanting to do it in multifamily homes. So if you have 6 unrelated people living in each unit and you buy a 4-family, that's 24 people in a
Right.
4-family. That's a little intense.
Yeah, I agree.
And
and their
so,
walls have square footage per person.
and it kind of gets tricky with, as you just mentioned, Elaine, square footage per person, bedrooms relating to people, but
We don't-
also
Maybe the way to handle it is to allow it in the R1 and R2 as a matter of right. Also allow it in the other residential zones subject to special exception.
and that
I'd be careful that to put
So
seniors
that you
in.
can evaluate the ability to handle the additional parking and things of that nature.
So the other kind of bigger question, which I think Elaine was getting to, is many seniors in a multifamily might want an elevator or
Right.
something similar.
Yeah.
I don't know how well it's going to work in practicality.
Who's
and I-
buying a bunch of people in a 4-family home? That's just sounds,
Somebody that's looking to make a lot of money
yeah.
Well, you know what?
without care of the people that are living.
Come see in my rooming house. Sure.
Yeah,
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 I don't think we want to go.
yeah. I think I'd rather keep it in.
You can also put a limitation of
How
not
many?
more than 1 such unit per structure, per dwelling.
Yep.
So that
Yeah, just
you
leave
can't
it
have a
all.
2-family house or a 3-family house that has 6 unrelated people on each floor. That just is going to open up all sorts of problems.
Well, Tony, I think we just do what you said, do it in R1, R2 zones, and that's about it.
Yeah,
Call it quits.
not even by right, just R1 or R2 and then leave it at that.
And I think
Well-
that's honestly the biggest market in reality.
Well, except that you sometimes a downtown area is an area where 6 unrelated people might want to live together.
That may be, but
Then-
that's not gonna help us with this project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're talking about how to get more affordable.
Plus, we don't want to create unsafe situations for
Correct.
Or
seniors
anybody,
or
yeah,
anybody,
right?
right?
I mean, just. Don't know.
All right, Alex.
Well, I think we beat the seniors, but definitely take a look at the views of Long Hill and see if we could,
Expand that,
those.
yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
I've got all the volume numbers if you want, instead of looking it up, but.
Oh, you
Okay.
do? Actually, yeah, I will gladly take them. Let me go back to that note. Okay,
Volume 441. Page 197. That's the quitclaim deed.
okay,
But for the actual views of Long Hill, it's, volume 803 at page 19. And then there's 2 amendments. The first one's volume 944 at page 339. And the second amendment is volume 2074, page 144.
Okay.
So. And my mother used to live in one of those, so they are definitely geared for seniors. There's no basements. It's very,
Good.
they were very affordable back then.
got it. Aside from that, if there are any red lines, grammatical things, spacing, minor comments anyone has, please email me. Drop your
Okay.
packet off, scan it, however you want to do it. And be glad to incorporate those as soon as possible.
All right, are we gonna continue this for another session?
I think we have to.
I think we do
Other
too.
Commissioners that didn't have any
Mhm.
input. So hopefully they'll watch this before the next meeting.
Must be getting close to the.
It is 9:00 already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time.
Okay.
Up to you, it's up to you.
No, I know.
To
I think we're gonna close for adjournment. Thank you, everyone.
have your gavel. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to-
Just a reminder, next week,
Yeah, yes,
we will be at SIS. You guys might remember Mike Santoro. He will be
That's
doing a brief presentation beforehand, just so the public sees someone from Department of Housing, gets a crash course on what affordable housing is. And
That's
then
great.
we'll start the hearing. So hopefully everyone's on a neutral
You
plane.
think it might pay to make his presentation like the opening of the public hearing?
That's the plan.
It is.
No,
It's
but I
the
mean,
first-
rather than a separate item, so that it becomes part of the record of the public hearing?
Um,
What's the we can talk about that later. I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
understand.
Well, but because you usually let the applicant go first, right? To make the presentation. So how would you do that, Tony?
Well, you can say that the commission, in view of the concerns that have been raised, has decided to solicit some additional input from a competent source to
I think
explain a little bit more exactly what affordable housing is.
Yeah, but he's given a presentation and it's not part, we wouldn't have opened the public hearing. So
That's
it's
true.
not- Doesn't become
But
part
it,
of the record.
It's also
but,
not
but his
specific-
presentation then is part of our record.
but his presentation is not specific to the application that we would have just opened up.
No, it's just background with respect to affordable housing.
So why would it be part of the?
So
record?
why would it be part of the
It doesn't
hearing?
really matter, bottom line, because if need be, we'll just refer back to his presentation and the
Yeah.
information that was provided to us.
Yeah.
I think that's a better
Yeah,
approach.
I think just keep it separate.
30G.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Okay.
you. Good night.
File.